Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open up our Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting tonight, Thursday, May 4th, 2023. We are meeting in the quiet meeting room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. This meeting is being broadcast live on local cable channel 18 and also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we begin, if you would like to join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First thing I'll do is open up for public comment, and this particular session of public comment is for any items that are not listed on our agenda this evening. So if there's somebody from the public that would like to comment something, anything? Nothing. Okay, great. I'll then move to our pre- and post-hearing agenda items. Approval of minute meetings for April 20th, 2023. Those people that will be voting on the minutes, those present at that meeting, Paul Colombo, Stephen Cook, Marjorie Claproot, Aaron Copeland, and Sandra Godfrey. Have you had time to read through those minutes?
I have.
Is there a motion then to accept them?
So moved.
Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you, Aaron. Motion is made and seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion about the minutes themselves?
I thought they were very well written.
They are very good. Thank you.
It's a thankless job, right? So I'm thanking.
I just said thank you.
I do write a lot. I do write a lot.
Okay, roll call vote. Alex, I'm skipping over you. Stephen Cook.
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Under our discussion item, I just want to take a minute, under the Mashpee Water Quality Issues and Initiatives. I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of the voters that came to town meeting and voted to approve Articles 36 and 37, along with Article 27. Those were all kind of slated as clean water articles. And there are still many other things that we should be looking at to help bring about some remedial action to the water quality that we have before the sewer actually comes up and running. Because there are still many, many things that we can be looking at and doing to help that situation.
Can I just say, Mr. Chairman, on the record, I just love the town of Mashpee and the way they conduct themselves. It was a full house. There was a lot of heated, passionate opposition on issues, and everyone was so kind and courteous. If the rest of America were like Mashpee, we'd have such a good sleep every night. But I just wanted to say on the record, I've been to a lot of town meetings. That was a lovely town meeting.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your comment. Drew, do you want to take any of these updates, or should we just go right into it first?
Probably just go right into it.
Just kind of move along?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to call the 6 o'clock hearing for the Pompanesett Island Road LLC, 12 and 16 Pompanesett Island Road. This is a proposed raise and replace of 2 existing dwellings, a septic system upgrade to an innovative alternative system, construction of new dwellings, including attached garage, pool, patio, terrace, porches, decks, and landings, landscaping, hardscaping, and mitigation plantings. Cape and Islands Engineering, Inc., this is a notice of intent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Matt Costa, Cape and Islands Engineering, here tonight with project engineer Raul Lazari Rivera. Also in the project team, joining remotely is attorney Matt Watsky. Together, we're representing the applicant. We're here tonight under notice of intent application to raise 2 single-family dwellings and construct 1 new single-family dwelling. See, Drew's got it pulled up on the screen here. We're at the point of Pompanesett Island, just as you come over the causeway. 12 and 16 are circled in the green maps, in the green square that Drew has. And you can see from this picture the 2 single-family dwellings. Your resource areas for this project include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, salt marsh, coastal dune, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Pardon me, Drew, if you want to roll to the site plan, we can talk about that.
Just waiting for this bar to disappear. It's on the tab behind the bar, so.
Well, if you refer to the site plan in your packet, you'll
Yeah,
see that, as I stated, we have the 2 single-family dwellings. Those will be completely raised, RAZ, and a new single-family dwelling is going to be constructed in its place. This project does have, for the property number 12, it does have an order of conditions, which is actually fine for this picture. If you see on property number 12, there's a boathouse along the shoreline. Pardon me again. That was recently approved to be reconstructed, and that is cited on the plan with the appropriate DEP number. Also, this project had been on house number 16, did have a previous order of conditions, site plan and mitigation requirements, and we have incorporated those mitigation requirements into this new site plan. And if you look at your site plan, you'll see some brown areas, shaded brown areas. Those areas are the old required mitigation. There we go. So you see right here, 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 and here are up on the screen for the other folks. Those are areas that had required mitigation in the past. Now, what we're doing with this project is you'll see the underlying gray areas of the existing structures and accessories, and you'll see in brown the new structure. In gray, we have some what we'll call impervious areas, patios, pool patios, utility pads, things like that. The driveway is actually impervious. It's going to be, pervious. It's going to be a stone driveway. These existing required mitigation areas are for this one and this one here in the corner and on the link along the bank. They are going to remain. The area in the middle, right here, this area in the middle, is going to be relocated over into this mitigation area here. Now, when we run the mitigation calculations for this project based on your regulations, we have a requirement of 844 square feet of mitigation. What we're proposing to do is to relocate 450 square feet of that mitigation area in the middle and move it over to here. And together with the 844, we have 1,294 square feet of required mitigation. We're proposing 4,400 square feet of mitigation. Additionally, we're removing 10 trees out in the front of the property, and those trees are going to be also replanted in this general area of the property over here. The septic system is going to be a denitrifying septic system. And this is a significant improvement because today what we have on the ground right now is we have 2 septic systems. Neither one of them are denite systems, and they total 10 bedrooms. We're going to be going to a 9-bedroom denite system, and that's going to result in a significant removal of nitrogen discharge from these 2 sites, which has immediate impacts on water quality. Also, what we're going to be doing is when the boathouse shown here, right here, when that was approved, that was proposed to be connected into the septic system on house number 12. That was not a D-night system. So we are now going to be connecting that into this dwelling, which will be fed into the main system. So that is going to be picked up as well for nitrogen treatment, nitrogen removal treatment. This project meets all of your applicable performance standards as we have articulated in our narrative, and we are respectfully requesting you issue an order of conditions. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before I ask the commissioners what questions they have, I'd like to address a little bit of procedure. There are two open orders of conditions currently, one on lot, I'm going to use the addresses, 16, the other one on 12. 16 is a raise and replace. The one on 12 is the rehab of the boathouse and tying it into the existing septic on 12. And this order of conditions is again raise and replace on lot 16.
Yeah, there's going to be a certificate of compliance requested.
Before I go any further, before you go any further, the DEP frowns on multiple filings for similar projects on the same properties. So until that order of conditions is petitioned to be closed, I don't feel at all comfortable proceeding with this hearing.
We actually do this often, and there's...
Excuse me. I don't care how often you do it. I'm referring to Wetlands Program Policy 88.3 from the DEP, and it deals with multiple filings, and they frown on that. So why would I, as chairman of this commission, go against a Wetlands Program Policy from the DEP?
Because it's not required and it has no material impact to this project whatsoever.
Make your presentation then. Go ahead.
The raise and rebuild notice of intent for that structure there has been no work done to it. It's not like it's halfway done or anything like that. It's simply that it's no work. It's a filing for a certificate of compliance of no work. That's all it is. The boathouse order of conditions remains. That's a valid order of conditions for the work on that boathouse.
My point is this, Matt. When I listen to your presentation, you're taking mitigation areas and you're moving them around. I'm looking at an order of conditions that's outstanding that this board issued for those mitigation areas. They haven't even been set into place,
That one's not for that.
and you're moving them.
No, that mitigation area is not subject to that open order of conditions.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Well, then that's my mistake. But it's still a multiple filing. So why is this order of condition, why didn't you request to close that before this?
Okay. So procedurally, we do have an order of conditions for number 16,
Yes.
and that is still valid. The applicant, now that he acquired the adjacent property, is rethinking his project to make this project now. If this project gets through all the required approvals, then the process will be to close that prior open order of conditions without any action, closing it by submitting a COC request. And that one closes that particular open order. But until this project, he feels that is approved and he can proceed with this project, he still wants to keep that open order should this project eventually not proceed or not be materialized. So it is allowed to keep that order in hand until after this one gets all the approvals. Now, this one, once it gets all the approvals, will require that other order, which could be conditioning by this board, that order be closed before a building permit is issued for this project.
Once this order gets issued, then that other one's a moot point, and it needs to be procedurally closed. But there's no sense for the applicant to give up their rights on that order until they have a new order.
Other commissioners who would like to question?
You said there were 10 trees going to be removed, and you said they're going to be put in that this is 1-to-1, they're exact, being replaced over there?
Yes.
Okay. And then I was out there today, and I saw the 100-foot stake. I didn't see any of the 50-foot stakes. They should be out there, yeah?
Yeah, there's probably quite a few stakes out there. They
Right,
try
I
to
was all
use,
over-
they try to use different color flagging to help
Yep.
you identify.
Yeah.
But yes, standard, staking the 50 is standard.
Yeah, I saw the
for
100
staking.
that's by the chain link fence and the pool equipment. I just didn't see
A lot of the 50 is in
Through the structures.
Within the building,
structures,
yeah.
so you'd probably have to look along the side in that area.
Yeah, I was all over the place. I just couldn't find it. So that was just something I noticed.
Anyone else?
The way you calculated the mitigation plantings, since the whole area is shaded, it looks like so it looks like that area is vegetated, right? Like there's trees already there.
There's standalone trees, right, but the understory is missing. So what we're proposing for that particular area is all the shrubbery between the trees, and then the new trees within that northern portion of the property is in areas that they do have clear growth between all the other trees and on the clearing just to the south of that mitigation area. So yeah, most of that vegetation underneath the canopy of all these other trees is going to be the shrub understory growth.
We denoted through different symbols what is the proposed tree versus the existing. So
Yeah.
you'll see one called out where it says typical, like right here. That type of icon right there, that's the proposed tree icon.
And
And so all the green areas, so the proposed trees you can see are out in here. They're not all in there. So there's proposed trees throughout there. The green area is going to be your woody shrub planted area.
okay. And why doesn't it connect to the other pre-existing mitigation area?
So you're talking about the brown,
Right
so there's
there.
existing vegetation right there, but that was existing even before
Yep.
that mitigation was proposed. So it's existing, it's going to remain.
It doesn't need to be planted.
I understand. Why isn't the proposed mitigation connecting to it?
Right here, the green connecting to the brown?
Yep.
That
Because
gap-
there's existing vegetation there that's good.
Okay. Okay.
Going back to your comments, Mr. Chairman, about the DEP regulations, so what's the specifics on it? Because I understand what Matt, his reasoning for it, and then trying to understand.
This is not a
understand.
regulation, it's a policy. It's called
Policy,
BDA
okay.
3 multiple filings. And I'll just read a part from it. The department wants to avoid review and issuance of 2 or more orders of conditions for the same or similar projects at the same site.
Okay, it's not,
So we have an open order. So my philosophy is that order has to be closed before this particular order, if it's going to be granted, would be issued. This is very similar to a recent case that we had, and I think the commission voted to make sure that all of the work in that order was completed, and then those things that weren't going to be completed would be requested in the certificate of compliance. That order would close, and only until that was closed would any new construction start on that particular project. That was at our last hearing 2 weeks ago.
okay, so we're consistent, what you're asking for is consistent with what we've done recently in the past?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what this policy is saying, that
Okay,
you can't have 2 orders.
right,
running
so that
side by
one
side.
got closed out for us before issued the new one. Okay.
I think a project team member could shed some light on this. Matt Watsky was general counsel for DEP, and he could speak to this.
Oh, he's online?
Drew, can Matt speak?
When the chair calls for public comment, I would think.
I'll allow him to
No,
speak right now.
he's part of the
part of
team.
the team.
Oh, okay.
Is he there?
sorry. What's his name again?
Matt Watsky.
Matt Watsky, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, you can go ahead and comment.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Matthew Mashpee. Just a little bit of background. I don't know, to toot my own horn, I suppose, is that I was the Deputy General Counsel at the Mass DEP from 1985 to 1990, and I wrote this policy, Mashpee. The policy is specifically focused on the situation where the DEP has been asked to process a superseding order of conditions, and then there's a notice of intent that's filed. And so the DEP, when it discovers that there's a new notice of intent that's been filed under this policy, would stay action on the original filing, and then has a requirement that once a new order has been issued by the commission, that the applicant has 21 days to withdraw one or the other of them. This policy was actually intended to encourage new filings as a way of a dispute resolution rather than forcing an applicant to file an appeal of an adverse decision and then go through a full review on appeal at DEP. So it was intended to allow a second notice of intent to be filed. It didn't actually specifically deal with the situation we have here. We have an existing order of conditions that's in place, and then a new notice of intent being filed that's for something, let's say, inconsistent with that original order of conditions, but consistent with the thought process of the policy. What DEP would expect is that once this second notice of intent has been processed by the commission and an order of conditions issued, that the applicant would choose which one of these two orders of conditions do you choose to go forward with. And if you choose not to go forward with the old one, that's at 16, you'd file the application for a certificate of compliance that closes out that notice of intent with no work having been completed. And then the only order of conditions that continue is the
So said.
Yeah. I'll say, anything else?
No, that's all I really have to say about that. Unless you have a question, then I'd be glad to respond.
Sure. Thank you.
Does that help, Steve?
Yeah, I understand the reasoning behind it. But does that,
So we can condition it that the other order will have to be closed prior to anyone commencing for this one.
You know, I read the information about superseding orders.
Yeah.
And hypothetically, if we were to issue an order on this tonight, and that other order is outstanding, and 10 residents of this town appeal that issuance, that would go directly to DEP, and they would have on their hands exactly what this policy says they don't want to have on their hands. He's right. He's right in the fact that it does refer to superseding orders, because it's right here. It's number 2. In the case of superseding orders of conditions, and it goes on, the applicant has 21 days and so forth. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Okay, so how can we condition it?
I guess you could condition it similar to the project that was conditioned at our last hearing,
Okay.
if that's the way you wanted to handle it.
which hearing was that one?
71 Monomoskoye.
Oh, that's the one I
Yeah.
recused myself of, went outside. Okay,
Yes.
that's why it didn't sound familiar to me. I wasn't in the room. There you go.
How convenient, Steve.
But I know there was a lot of dialogue from Ms. Clabroot over there about running the 2 orders, and how can we do this, and how can we not do that? And that was a long.
Well, I'm similarly uncomfortable with it just because Board of Health has a lot to go over that they haven't had a chance yet to take a bite at. The 2 orders just confuse the issue and leave the commission in a very precarious position of approving it, letting it go, even with the conditions, and having something go awry. And in this case, the 10 taxpayer clause is an interesting clause, where 10 taxpayers can come forward.
Residents.
Yeah, it's a classic,
That they would, not they wouldn't, we don't know.
well, we don't know, but we need to assume in order to have this work well, for both the petitioner
Sure.
and for the commission, that it could. That it very well could. And I'm just uncomfortable having that many conditions. It's a condition-heavy approval that I wonder if we could do something differently without giving the petitioner an adverse impediment. You don't want to, in any instance, punish you for something that hasn't yet happened. But my point is that we're empowered and authorized, and we have to be the ones, the keeper of the key.
So this doesn't in any, we're creating a mountain out of a molehill here. This is, Matt Watsky literally said he wrote this policy, and it's okay to issue 2 orders conditions. The applicant doesn't want to give up a right for one order until he has the other. This is completely logical. If somebody does appeal, or the applicant appeals, or whoever appeals, it doesn't put the commission in any sort of position whatsoever with having another open order there. It's just simply a preservation of rights, which they acquired before, and they're pursuing more different rights under this order of conditions now. You're not exposing yourself to anything here. This is done regularly.
And I would also like to add, if the condition is for this new application that before the building permit is issued, the other order condition has to be closed, that's a straight up condition that this project cannot proceed until that other order is closed.
A very basic condition, and the Board of Health does not have a lot to review here. This is a very simple, straightforward process where they can issue the permit by right.
Okay. Any other questions by commissioners?
I am uncomfortable with the edge of the patio being 12 feet from the top of the coastal bank. I see that in how it is currently existing, there's a deck that is within 10 feet of the coastal bank, so I'm assuming that's why that was planned out, being that close. But I can't,
Yes, you're right.
That is the reason, yes.
It is closer, the deck is closer than the patio is being proposed.
okay, so this gets so confusing, because at times we're told, well, a deck doesn't affect the flow of floodwaters, inundation, but then a patio could
This is not-
affect.
The patio is not in the flood zone.
This is not in the flood zone.
Yeah, it's outside the flood zone.
All of that area is above the flood zone.
The flood zone line's out on the coastal bank.
It stops on the riprap.
There's two
It
flood
is
zones.
within a flood zone, is it not?
No,
No.
there's 2 flood zones
Elevation
here.
that goes to X.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
here, look up on the
This is
plan, let me show
14
you.
out here
So why is it saying flood zone?
On the
It says X.
on the street side.
X is
Flood
the.
zone X
X is
means
right
that it's
here.
not,
Alex, right up here,
I
look.
see.
This is not flood zone in the
See
middle.
this? This way, seaward of this line is flood zone.
Okay.
Then you come around the property over here, and flood zone here goes this way.
I see,
All this area in the middle, not in flood zone.
I see, okay. I understand, okay.
It is confusing.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
And that patio, that's a new apartments, right? That's not part of the original,
All this, what you see in the brown and the gray is all going to be new,
right?
but it's not moving any closer than the previous structures. Matter of fact, we're a little bit further away.
So let me ask you this. How does the corner of that patio, well, it says 12.7 to the top of the coastal bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the deck over on 12 is closer.
10 feet.
If you see right here, Paul, right up there. That
Right.
deck right there. So we kept the structure not moving any closer than the existing structures, and we kept the patio is not moving any closer, actually a little bit further away than the existing decks and patios.
Yeah, we submitted a standalone existing condition plan that better defines and better illustrates all the setbacks. So this is the deck that is at 10 foot from the top of the bank.
I don't see how that would meet Regulation 25 setback.
How so?
Well, Regulation 25 setback says that the setback shall extend a minimum of either 50 feet from the inland boundary of the coastal feature or 25
Unless they
feet
just took it.
of the edge of a coastal buffer zone. That patio is 12.7 feet from the coastal bank.
That regulation's talking about
Talking about
high erosion areas. So
No.
that's it is the CZM shoreline change
Those are,
project.
excuse me, those are different setbacks. They're in the chart of Table 2 of Regulation 25. That setback is referring to land subject to coastal flow, which the DEP calls a coastal wetland, and all of the coastal features that are part of coastal flow.
That regulation was literally copied from Rhode Island, right? And in Rhode Island, where they copied that regulation from, it was speaking to all high coastal erosion areas. They literally took the text and copied it over. That's why you're seeing terms like coastal feature. That's something that's not a term in our own regulations. And coastal buffer zone, that's actually not a term in our own regulations. Those are terms in Providence regulations where they copied this from. And the section that they copied it from, which is actually referenced right below that table that you talk about, that whole regulation has to deal with these high erosion areas, very similar to where they reference CZM's high erosion areas. The CZM did a map, and that Regulation 25 also references that map. And if you look at that map is intended for all of the beach that runs from the spit all the way up towards the clubhouse. And those are the high erosion areas that they're talking about. This area here is not within that. So that regulation, that setback does not apply. And it's always been, for the 20 years I've been dealing with these regulations, it's always been dealt that way, handled that way.
From Regulation 25, what we do apply to this project is the percentages of naturally vegetated areas, which in this case, we both comply with it. One of them is 20% width, measured from mean high water, and that will be on the shoreline. And the other one will be for this portion of the property that is the flood zone to the bottom of the picture, which is not directly connected to the ocean, which is 30% of that wetland, not land subject to coastal storm flowage, 30% of that area to be preserved as naturally vegetated, which we exceed both of those cases.
That's a very good point, because that's the part of Regulation 25 that gets broadly applied across all projects. And that is something that the commission throughout the years has been pretty consistent with, is when you're operating within those flood zone areas to look at those calculations for that natural vegetation. And we did look carefully at that, and we do meet those regulations.
Anything else?
Yeah, we have a couple questions. Matt, I was looking down here, Matt. The grade out grades. I see a new grade of 14 running across the lawn where the house in number 12 is. There's a grade out 14 underneath, and there's a few other ones where the new house is located. So is that the existing grades of 14 underneath and grade out?
The grade out are existing. You can better see the existing grades on the existing condition plan. So there's the 14 that comes to the existing house, and I believe that's the one you're referring to.
Right.
And we're
right, yeah.
proposing it to connect to the existing grade 14 on 16.
Right.
So we're
right.
making a connection from one to the other.
So-
Steve, right here, Steve, look, see
Yep,
the
yep.
14, that's existing, we're picking up the 14 and moving it.
Right. So I see that. So how come the elevation 14 is out out beyond the wall,
at the
beyond the
riprap.
top. of
It's a
Coastal Bank.
velocity zone. So velocity zones are not delineated using elevation. They're delineated using horizontal locations. So like an A zone, if it says elevation 14, we would map the A zone along an elevation 14. When you go to map a velocity zone, you're mapping the velocity zone's location as they show it on the FEMA maps.
Yeah.
And that's the horizontal
Yeah.
location.
And the 14 includes the 3-foot height of a wave crashing. So it's not the still water,
Right.
it's the height of the wave.
Right.
If you think of it that way, if you continue south of this property, there is no elevation 14s at all on number 16 and the subsequent property to the south. But yet the velocity zone is still VE 14, even though there's no elevation 14
Okay.
on the property.
All right, thank you for that.
All set with commissioners? Any other questions? No? I'll go
Has
out to
Drew
the public.
given his,
Not yet, but he will. I'll go to the public if there's any questions or comments from those in attendance. Hearing none. Drew, I'll ask you for your comments.
So, going back to the open orders, I think that, if you were to issue an order conditions, you could simply put in as conditions of the new order that the existing orders must be closed out before any commencement of work on this particular project. And that would pretty much nail that, take care of that issue right away, if you're comfortable with it. And you did do that last meeting for 71 Monomoskoye. So this, some of my comments, as was already mentioned by the applicant's consultant, most of the alterations taking place within the flood zone, and no alterations to the existing coastal bank, which is armored, partially armored. It's an old stone revetment seawall. I did say that I wanted clarification on mitigation, but you have since clarified that, and it's more than a 2-to-1 ratio. So that question was already answered. Combination of 2 existing homes into 1 home results in an increased setback of structure from the top of the coastal bank. They also performed the nitrogen nitrate loading calculations for the new development in accordance with the nitrogen calculation sheet that we use as part of that regulation from the Cape Cod Commission, and it results in a net decrease from the existing conditions and falls below the overall threshold under Reg 30 of 19 milligrams per liter. So I do recommend to close an issue with the conditions of submission of a signed 3-year mitigation, maintenance, and monitoring contract between the homeowner and a qualified wetland consultant, horticulturalist, or landscaper to the Conservation Department prior to any building permit sign-off. Condition that all open order of conditions be closed through certificate of compliance applications prior to commencement of work, and any conditions detailing pool water withdrawal that the commission seems fit to apply to that aspect of the project. Board of Health, septic plans for proposed IA system to be reviewed upon submission to Board of Health. Floor plans to be reviewed upon submission to the building department. Required setbacks from edge of in-ground pool are 10 feet from the tank and 20 feet from the soil absorption system. Building comments, property has signed MT1 form and Form 2. Project must seek relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Application has been filed today, May 4th, 2023. No comments from the Harbor Master, Natural Resources, or Shellfish, as no aspect of this is in those resource areas. No other comments?
Thank you. Okay. I would entertain a motion if there is one.
can I ask you, put you on the spot now? Does the update from Drew in any way make you feel more comfortable with this if we have that condition that we did on Monomoskoye in this one?
Yeah, I think that has to be addressed, yeah, because that's the way we handled the last job. We want to be
Yeah.
consistent in what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
That seemed to do the trick, though, on Monomoskoye. I'm just wondering if that makes you comfortable with it.
Well, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I would say I'm not too fine with the interpretation of Regulation 25,
right, I know.
but I'll entertain a motion if there is one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for a closing issue for the Papaneset Island Road LLC, 12 and 16 Papaneset Island Road, with the conditions of a signed 3-year mitigation, maintenance, and monitoring contract between the homeowner and a qualified wetland consultant, horticulturist, or landscaper, submitted to the Conservation Commission, Conservation Department prior to any building permit sign-off. Close out the previous order of conditions prior to start of any work. And then for the pool water drawdown, to have the pool water pumped out into a pump truck.
Just to clarify, we're going to
Not
close
now.
one order.
We're in the middle of a
In the
motion.
middle of a motion.
In the middle of a motion right now.
But it's important. It's just,
Those three?
Those three, yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
All right, so the motion is made and seconded, and I will open that up for discussion amongst the commissioners, and if I see fit, I will let other discussions come in. I'll start with the commissioners. Any questions, comments, amended motions, anything? Nothing? Well, again, my only comment is I'm not satisfied with Regulation 25-7. I heard what the representative had to say. I don't agree with what the representative has to say because the regulation in the Mashpee Code is clearly broken down into two sections. It is setbacks for coastal features and coastal wetlands, which we know is defined by the DEP as land subject to coastal flow. So, you know, everyone can interpret that the way they want. I'm just not comfortable with it. Anything else on the commissioners? You had something to say, Matt?
I just want to clarify that when you write the special condition for the closing of the order of conditions, we're going to leave the boathouse open. It's just closing the one on 16
Can I ask why you're leaving that open? What's the reason?
to do the work on the boathouse.
Okay. Okay, so that has, I didn't realize that hadn't been done yet, so.
No, that has not been
Okay,
done yet.
Okay.
And that is a distinctly separate project from
And
this
that's
one.
not mentioned in this project description, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and part of this, that boathouse is connecting to the septic system,
Right.
which is this septic system. So we cannot connect it to the old system that we're going to be removing. We wanted to connect it to this one.
So this order covers going up to the boathouse, but the work on the boathouse is covered under the old order,
Okay.
the other order for the boathouse. There's an order for the house rebuild on 16, and that's what should be closed. This supersedes that.
Okay.
And then procedurally, how does that boathouse septic get tied into the location of the new septic? Because that's not part of this plan.
No, it is.
It is.
So the septic is shown to be tied into the house from the boathouse.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah, the heavy
plan
black line there.
and application covers that septic connection.
That's the septic connection right there.
Yeah, it's going to go through the house.
Oh, it's going through the
Yeah.
house?
Right,
Yeah.
it's connecting to the plumbing of the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's contained in which condition and which,
The work,
it seems as though
the work,
synchronicity isn't there.
no, it is. The work to rebuild the boathouse is covered under an order of conditions that has been issued. The work to connect the septic line from the boathouse to the house is covered under this application.
This one.
Yes.
Right.
So does the condition that Commissioner Cook has, the motion that's on the floor, does that still require, I just want to make sure to my colleagues here, that we don't issue a spineless condition that the oddity of having the boathouse issue and the septic issue under two different conditions. So does it still hold, I guess, is what I'm saying. our intention here is to say, you can't go forward with the rest of the work until you've closed this out. That's our intention, right?
Well, yes, I mean, they're legally able to finish out the work under an issued order of condition for the boathouse. That's not in question.
No, I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and then,
So,
so
but
the
then how do
other, the
they-
other order that's outstanding where none of that work is going to take place is going to be superseded entirely by this one, if you vote to approve it.
Yeah.
So-
I can amend the motion to specifically say
Just
the
that
order
of
conditions
but
for
not-
number 16.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
Yeah.
That's what my comment was
Yeah.
directed
Yeah.
towards, yes.
That's what you meant to say.
That's what I meant to say.
Under the discussion with the commissioners, are you proposing an amendment to? the
Yes,
motion?
I'll amend the motion to state that the closure of the open order conditions for number 16 be closed prior to commencement of any work.
And not the boathouse?
And not the boathouse, yeah, because that one is
Okay.
ongoing.
Is there a second? Alex? Any discussion on that amended
That clarifies
motion?
it, I think, yeah.
Okay. So I'll call for a vote on the amended motion first, which will take us back to the original motion. Roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron? Sandy? And I will vote yes on the amendment. So that carries, and now we're back to our original motion. We've had that on the floor. It's seconded. It's now amended. Discussion, I assume, is closed. Nothing else commissioners want to add? Then I will call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
No.
I vote no as well, and I make my no vote based on Regulation 25-7C. Motion carries.
Thank
Thank you.
Just give me a minute to clean up here. Now calling the 603 hearing, Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, 275 Quiniquisette Avenue. Proposed construction and maintenance of 14 single-family homes with paved driveway, sidewalk, drainage systems, and associated utilities. The representative is Baxter Nye Engineering and Survey, and this is a notice of intent. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Matthew Eddy, professional engineer with Baxter Nye Engineering and Surveying, representing Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC. With me tonight, behind me, is attorney Jack McElhenney. He's the attorney for Willow Bend. And also on Zoom, we have Mike Soares, who is with Fuss & O'Neill. He's a wetland scientist, and he is our wetland restoration expert. Brad Holmes of VCR performed the wetland delineation, but he couldn't attend tonight. He has another hearing off Cape. So with that, if I may, I'd like to just give you some brief background on this project. It's a fairly large project, and this board has seen it informally previously. We had presented it to the commission informally on November 10th, 2022. To obtain some feedback from the commission prior to us getting into the very detailed design plans and et cetera. We also have reviewed with Drew over, I'm going to say, at least a year, many meetings that I've had with Drew, just, as we're going through the process and coming up with the design scope. I believe from that informal hearing that we received a general consensus that it was a plan that the commission thought made sense for us to move forward with, to come in with the design detail and with the notice of intent, and that's what we're here before you tonight. Also, just by way of background, so it's as you just stated, it's a 14 single-family detached homes, which will become part of the Willow Bend project. It contains a village green community area as part of the project, and I'll get into the proposed aspect. As part of that Village Green area, we are proposing wetland fill for this, and again, I will describe that in detail. But what I just wanted to point out, kind of from a process standpoint, we've been going through planning board, I think we've had two or three, I think two maybe, planning board hearings as part of the process. And through that process, there's been revisions that have been made to the plan as a result of the planning board comments. Those revisions have actually resulted in a reduction of impacts. We are now down to 12 units from 14. And I'm just giving you this, I understand that this is new information. I'm not expecting, a decision tonight. We understand this is going to be a multi-hearing project. I just wanted to bring you up to speed with where we are at, just based on other processes going on in Mashpee for this project. So again, as a result of that, we're down to 12 units. We increased the buffer along Quiniquisette, which was a comment from Planning Board, to 60 feet and 65 feet at the structures. And there was a significant reduction in the wetland fill and impact. I identified these changes to Drew in general just over the past couple of days, because this is all very current. And staff did ask me to bring plans of just the modified sheets for the commissioners, so you have them. Drew does have PDFs as well, so I'm going to go through what was submitted.
Great.
But then I'll kind of point out where the changes were occurring, so everybody's on the same page.
Sure.
And then, our hope tonight is to, obtain comments and feedback from you all to help us, in moving the project forward. And again, as I said, we fully understand this is not going to be closed tonight, and will be a multi-hearing project. So with that, if I could, these are just, again, just so that you have them.
That's great.
You don't have enough paper, Drew? Thanks.
Tree or two.
So with that, I'd like to just get into the description of the project. Drew, if possible, could you go to sheet, I believe it's C 2.0, the existing conditions plan?
I'm not sure I have that up.
Are you, that's the original plan set? That's all the new, that's the revised
all.
layout, but the
Yeah.
original submission, if, you should have, that was a pretty significant PDF that I sent along.
Yeah.
Crashed my computer.
Yeah, I know, I had to send it in 5
Well,
emails, I think.
I think do you guys have it in front of you?
I mean, yeah, if you, I can just,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
walk through that.
Yeah.
So just wanted to kind of describe the existing conditions on the site. The lot area is approximately 5 acres. It's about 3.5 acres of upland and about 1.5 acres of wetland. It fronts along Quiniquisette Ave. The site contains isolated and bordering vegetated wetlands. There's cranberry bogs to the west and to the south. And if you have Google maybe available, Drew, you can pull that up, because I can, yeah, so you have, so we have the bog areas to the west and to the south here, Quiniquisette up here, and then this is the project area. There is no floodplain on the project. There's no priority habitat. There are no vernal pools. We did a vernal pool study, met with Drew. He concurred to that effect and issued a memo stating that as well. The lot is currently developed with a single-family home. As you can see, on the existing additions plan, we've detailed all the altered areas, just, with the landscaping, and there's, different sheds out there and so forth. So that's all defined on that existing additions plan. There's a significant portion of the upland area and some of the buffer area inside the 50-foot buffer area that has been altered from this existing house development. The house is on public water, and it also has a 5-bedroom septic system. So with that, if you want to go to the layout plan, Drew, please.
This one?
Yeah, and I can start, because The changes that have been made based on the planning board comments with the sheets that Drew has up on the screen, it's very similar to the initial submission. It's just a reduction of, 2 units. So since we don't have the other PDFs of the original submission, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, that's the 12.
Yeah, that's the current one here.
Yeah.
So
It
the
went from
initial.
what to what?
I'm sorry?
It went from what to what? How many units?
It was 14 units, it's now 12.
Okay.
So the initial submission and the package that you have, the first package, not the
Yeah.
revised sheets I just gave you, has, there was 2 additional lots here, so there was less of a buffer setback. We were at 40 feet off of Quiniquisette.
Yeah.
So that layout has changed from that, but generally looks the same. We were able to get a little bit more space between the units. We were able to pull the units away from the wetland area on the east side as a result of that reconfiguration. And the development this is being proposed as a cluster development, if you're familiar with it, and that's really what Willow Bend is. A special permit is a cluster and open space development. And Willow Bend has approximately 14 to maybe 16 units left within their special permit that they can build anywhere in Willow Bend. They're obtained this parcel and they're electing to, proposing to build those
So
here.
they're going to shoot the whole
Well,
deal
this
on
would get, this gets
this
just
project.
about to the end of the units allowed under the special
Yeah,
permit
okay.
in Willow Bend. But this design and this layout, if you're familiar with Willow Bend, is somewhat different in that the units are much smaller, the structures are much smaller than the other Willow Bend homes. So in actuality, even though it looks dense here, when you think about it from an overall standpoint, these 12 units, if they were done as a typical large home, larger lot format, you're going to end up with a lot more disturbed area, impervious surfaces, et cetera. So I hit on that. The access, the existing house, the driveway has a single driveway located. You can see that's the clearing for the driveway coming in. That's obviously going to be closed and revegetated. And the road entrance for the new project is shifting to the west, as we show there. It's about 120 feet to the west. We've provided a 20-foot paved road per fire department requirements and planning board requirements. And then there's also that outline along the edge of the road is a seashell shoulder for pedestrian movement, et cetera. Parking that's provided is via 1 garage space per unit, and then also the driveway space. As I just mentioned, the pedestrian movement on the shoulders, and then on this new layout, if you can scroll down a little bit, Drew, which is a revision from the first submission, the cart path we had going out to Quiniquisette and along Quiniquisette Ave. It's now actually coming out the end of the road and then ties in. This is the existing golf cart path circulation within the existing golf course. And if you're familiar with it all, this is referred to as Bog 1, which is the number 1 golf hole in the Bog 9 holes. And there's actually, just off the screen here, there's like a snack shop building. If you're driving down Quiniquisette, you see that just for your orientation. That's where that's located. With that, Drew, if you don't have the initial set, you're not going to have it in the PDF, so I'll just do it from, you can look at the plans in front of you. I was going to walk through the drainage. Obviously, so the submission that we've made to you in the original submission to the planning board with the 14-unit layout had all the detailed grading, drainage, stormwater management calculations. The planning board consulting engineer, Ed Pesci, has reviewed the submission and is recommending approval to the planning board for his review of the stormwater and project aspects. With this revised layout going down to 12 units, as you can imagine, the amount of, design changes that have to occur, and this is where we're really looking for feedback from you. We have not redone the grading and stormwater management to accommodate the 12 units. It's going to be the same scope. It's just, line work, grading, contours have to be shifted and moved. Stormwater elements have to be shifted and moved and will be redesigned as part of the process and will be resubmitted to this commission in a future continued hearing. But again, looking to hopefully get comments and feedback so that we're moving in a direction that makes sense to everyone. That's our hope. So with that, I'll just walk through the drainage and the stormwater systems. Again, those are on sheets 4.0 and 4.1, I believe, in your package, the initial package. So it's a very, I believe, significant and involved, stormwater management and drainage system that we've designed. It consists of a combination of catch basins. We have multiple water quality forebays. There's vegetated buffer strips and a wet detention stormwater system area. The stormwater management system has been designed to control runoff to below pre-development levels for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm that actually exceeds DEP stormwater policy. The design meets and exceeds the Mashpee zoning ordinance requirements for stormwater and, again, Mass DEP policy. We're providing over 80% of TSS removal, meeting the recharge requirements, et cetera. A benefit of the initial design was that we were incorporating, and you'll see on the plans, on the initial plans, we were incorporating, there was a forebay. I'm just going to point up here, even though it's not here, but we're incorporating a forebay in this area, which picked up the proposed road runoff, but also addressed existing runoff from Quiniquisette Ave. Currently, Quiniquisette Ave runoff comes down the road from both east and west, and then sheet flows across the road, and it comes right off the shoulder. If you go out there, you'll be able to see the shoulder's pretty soft here. You can see that sediment's built up, and you see that little wetland point. You can actually stand in the shoulder of the road, and you can grab that flag. So it's discharging right off of the road surface into the wetland system. So that original design, we were picking that up, incorporating it, providing water quality treatment, before then passing it on down the way. As part of the planning board comments, they want this area to be undisturbed and remain as existing vegetation. So I'm still, as I just mentioned, with this new layout, I got to get in and adjust stormwater and drainage and so forth. I am still going to attempt to include and incorporate the runoff from Quiniquisette Ave. It'll definitely be hydraulically, it will flow through. It's just a matter of the water quality volumes and the pretreatment. And I got to kind of think about it a little bit because it's going to, it's going to come through this existing wetland piece here that we're not going to be disturbing, but then I could pick it up into a four-bay system after that, provide treatment there, and that before it then continues on down the way. I think just one thing I should have pointed out earlier, and I know it's in my narrative, this existing wetland system here is an old bog. It's been inactive for a long time. I mean, it's fully wooded now, but it is an old bog. You can see you can still see some of the ditch channels in it. So I think the quality of the bog, and just probably through over time of it being farmed as a bog, probably has certain materials that were used during the bog farming that are there when we go in and actually do the work that we're proposing in here. We can actually kind of remediate some of that, if you will, and with the forebay areas and water quality, we can address that. So again, I really, even though I know you look at this first and you say, okay, you guys are filling wetlands here, but it's actually, overall, I think it's a net benefit to the environment for this overall project, and you'll see when we get into the the mitigation aspects. And I know Drew and I have had many discussions on this, like I said, over the year. So that's part of what I want to I need to try to incorporate, and I wanted to point out just from a stormwater standpoint, as far as picking up that runoff of Quiniquisette, because again, trying to create as many environmental benefits as we could.
Can I interrupt you just
Yep.
one second before we lose that, Drew, the original house?
You want me to show you that
I
image?
just had a question on that. to get my bearings. How big a piece of property is that your single house was on?
This is 5 acres right here.
Oh, okay.
And it's
The
about,
triangle
So
is
the
5
two
acres.
parcels.
yeah,
next
it's
to
2
them
parcels you got, yeah,
Equal
exactly.
5, okay.
Yep.
And
And you
then,
have that, that old bog system is right
it's
here.
right there, yeah.
And then you can see obviously the active bogs here, and there's
I can see
that
that.
dike that you see clearly on our plans, that's the dike right here. And this area, and Drew and I have been talking about it, this old bog area, it's potentially not hydraulically connected because there's an earth dike there. There is a old corrugated plastic pipe on the far corner here, but has historically been capped. It's part of the bog farming aspects.
Yeah.
So that'll, play into some, future discussions, I think, as we kind of, refine this.
So this like village green thing,
Yep.
what is that?
It's a community area for the development. There'll be a little bit of a, golf amenity there, like, a little, putting green, but there'll be, picnic tables, et cetera.
And that's currently a wetland.
And that's currently a wetland, yep. On that, since that's a good segue, Alex, for the construction of that area, of the Village Green area, that's going to be done where this will be bermed up along the edge here, so any surface runoff gets diverted to the stormwater forebay, and then the section, the profile of that Village Green construction is you have the lawn area on top. It's then going to have a 12-inch or so biofilter material. So as what infiltrates through is going through a biofilter material. It's then collected by an underdrain perforated pipe system that'll be in a gravel bed that will then be collected by a perforated pipe, bringing it to the forebays. So it's going through a treatment process. And one thing we have discussed with the team at Willow Bend is, and it's not in this information that I had submitted to you, but they're willing to actually do monitoring on that water, because they've done that in other projects. They have projects, up and down the East Coast, and they've had, very, renowned projects, successful projects where they have, enhanced the environmental benefit through things that they're proposing, and then mitigation and reclamation aspects.
Yeah, so that part for me is just looking at this, that like the village green idea is where I'm getting the most hung up. Like it is having natural functions are happening with it being a wooded wetland currently. Sure, it used to be cranberry bog, we can argue that, but it has natural processes happening that will then be man-made and kind of go away. Like it's not going to be storing carbon, it's not going to be doing some of the other functions that I would be looking for personally. And I mean, I like the idea of community, denser housing. I like a lot of that. They also have cart paths going to other places. They have kind of cool things to bring the community together, the existing, without a whole area that's a wooded wetland being kind of disturbed for a grass area. So I know you're just kind of looking for feedback. That for me,
Yep. It's helpful.
I
That's
have trouble with that one.
No, and I understand that. And I think, because we did it actually with the planning board, if at some point, if the commission wanted to maybe do a site visit, site walk or something, actually look at, the site, because I think, and when we get into the mitigation aspect, I'm hoping you're going to really see that's where the net benefit's coming from. But Alex, to your point, I hear totally what you're saying. Just being familiar with the site, this area that's being filled, being closer to Quiniquisette, there's impact there, but the mitigation that's then being provided along Quaker Run is going to be significantly offset that. And there has to be, it's a working relationship with a developer and the town in any project, right? And there has to be, for them, the cost of the mitigation that's being proposed is significant. It's probably, north of $200,000 for just the mitigation piece. So there's some give and take that,
They can save some money by not blowing up the whole.
But I appreciate, I appreciate your point, and that's definitely what we want to hear. I want to hear all the comments that you have and, see what we can do, for sure. So, okay, hit on that. So just, again, since I don't have a PDF to point to, but again, on the plans 4.0 and 4.1, I just talked about the general stormwater systems that we have. On your plans, you'll see on the westerly, behind the westerly units, there are water quality basins that are provided all along the backs of those units. That picks up all impervious runoff, treats and infiltrates right there. We then have a 50-foot buffer that's remaining vegetated, sorry. The easterly side is collected through the catch basin that's shown for the road collection, then over to the 4-bay areas, and then the village green area description that I just went through would be how that would be collected and treated as well. Obviously, sediment erosion control measures are provided. All areas will be maintained during construction and finally stabilized before removal of sediment erosion controls. A stormwater management O&M operation and maintenance narrative has been submitted with the application. There's also information on the plans to that effect. I think I mentioned already that the stormwater and the plans and the stormwater calcs and so forth were reviewed by the planning board's consulting engineer, and he found them to be approvable. Utilities for the site, we'll be extending the public water to all of these units. A big, again, benefit of this project is these units will be connected and tied into the Willow Bend wastewater treatment facility. We'll be extending the sewer line. You can actually see it on the screen here, that's the pump station location right there. So we'll be extending, and it's shown on our utility plan. We'll be extending a gravity line up Quiniquisette and then up the road here, and so all those units will go onto the treatment facility. That will eliminate the existing 5-bedroom septic system that is there. And just by way of point of interest, I'll say is, the hope is that this is going to be brought into Willow Bend under the special permit and the clustering aspect. If it wasn't, this could be developed, we've done an A&R on it, as 3 single-family lots. It wouldn't be part of this, because it's a cost to connect the sewer, it wouldn't necessarily be connected to the Willow Bend sewer, and so you could end up with septic systems being proposed. I don't believe this area is in the comprehensive sewer plan for the town.
What is the size of the units? Bedrooms, baths?
There are 3 bedrooms each.
3 and 2?
I don't know on the bathroom count off the top of my head, probably 2.5 or so,
Okay.
but the bedroom count is what drives the
Right.
wastewater flow.
I know, that's why I'm
Yeah,
trying to
so, yeah, so it's
just trying to figure it out.
Right. And we submitted the nitrogen loading calculation per the conservation requirements using your form, and we showed that there's actually less than 2 parts per million nitrogen. I think it was 1.6 and change nitrogen for this entire project.
The entire lot.
For the entire, all.
I was going to get to Regulation 30. I'm
Yeah,
glad you
yeah,
brought
it's
it
all,
up.
and a big part of that, obviously, is the connection to the wastewater treatment plant. And as soon as you do that, I mean, wastewater treatment plant is vastly different than even when you put an IA in as far as the treatment levels that you get. So, Drew, could you go to sheet 6.0 for me? That's the mitigation plan. There you go, thank you. So, with this here, what I want to just try to show is, on the west side of the project, this is the 50-foot buffer right along here so we are not disturbing inside or not doing any development inside the 50-foot buffer. This line here is the 100 inner riparian zone of the riverfront. And I'll do this over here for you, Paul, as well. Right here, that's the 100-foot inner riparian. Again, we're outside of that as well. Obviously, on the east side of the project, we are requesting a waiver for work within the 50. We're obviously filling wetlands. We're going to be inside the 50-foot buffer. But you can see, and you see on this plan, that I'm going to call it a curlicue line. That's the existing altered area of the single-family lot. So you can see there's a lot of, the 50-foot buffer on the east side that is already altered. And again, just pointing out, understanding Alex's point that, on this east side, that this was an old abandoned cranberry bog. Yes, it's a wetland resource. It has functions, positive functions as a wetland, but from a wetland system quality standpoint, I think this has a lesser value here than the Quaker Run system. And the reason I point that out is just from the mitigation that's being proposed. So we're proposing some impact here, but then with the mitigation, just real quick from the revisions, based on the planning board revisions that I just mentioned, the original impact was around 45,000 square feet. This current plan is down to 31,000 square feet of impact to the wetlands. That includes IVW and BVW. And so to mitigate this, Will Ben proposes to remove active cranberries. So that's an agricultural use that is exempt from many, or if not most, regulations. Fertilizer, pesticides, bogs get mowed once a year. And we are proposing to remove that active cranberry bog farming from bogs 1 and 2. And that's real quick, just from a qualification standpoint. The initial submission was 1, 2, and bog 3. With the changes that we've made through planning board and the reduction in impacts, based on the mitigation calculations, and I'll hit on those as well, the amount of mitigation required has dropped down to just under 2 acres, and so bog number 3 doesn't need to be included as part of the mitigation to meet the mitigation requirements. So that's why you're seeing bog 1 and 2 here.
So, but the mitigation requirements are for the building of the houses or for the clearing of a vegetated wet forest?
It's both. It's all the impact, including the buffer impacts, to the upland buffer impacts. You're up to your 100-foot buffer for your wetland areas.
Yeah.
And then also the fill in the wetland areas. So that calculation, and Drew and I went through that, and he concurred, and I'll let him speak to that as he feels fit. But he and I went through the calculation process with the mitigation that's being provided being wetlands, not buffer upland replanting where it's a wetland restoration aspect. And so with those calculations, again, for both the buffer impact following your policy for mitigation ratios, and then also the wetland impact mitigation ratio, again, it comes out as shown in the calculations there. It's a little bit under 2 acres, and bog 1 and 2 mitigate. I think it's a little bit over 2 acres. I think things that are very important to point out is we have, looking forward to my notes, I want to say it's around 30,000 square feet of impact in unaltered riverfront area, but outer riparian area, so outside of the 100-foot. But this bog mitigation, I mean, this is, Quaker Run, this is all inner riparian, that's all altered.
Right.
That's going to be restored, so we're actually, through the mitigation of not just the restoration of the wetlands, but then also the, combined with the riverfront area, it restores over 93,000 square feet of inner riparian zone. It's almost a ratio of 3 to 1 impact that we're doing on the outer riparian zone, and we're mitigating out at a 3 to 1 ratio almost on the along Quaker Run. So again, I think that's where the net benefit, and that's where you got to look at the picture as a whole and not necessarily individual pieces. And again, that's where Drew and I have had a lot of dialogue as I've kind of worked through this. And then the overall bog removal and wetland restoration, as I said, is over 2 acres. So again, that's over a 2 to 1 ratio. There's also an additional about 4,800 square feet. You see this darker green color on this plan here. And I'll do it over here as well. That is that's the existing bog access road, if you've been out there. You see it, it's actually, there's just a little curb cut entrance onto Quiniquisette. That will be restored, replanted, and that's an upland buffer piece. It's in the inner riparian, in your inner 50-foot buffer, et cetera. So additional mitigations provided there. So as I was saying, I believe that overall, this is a net environmental benefit when you look at all of the pieces that are being proposed. With that, if I could, and I think it'll be relatively brief, but Mike Soares is on the Zoom, and again, he's the wetland specialist for the bog wetland restoration. So, Mike, can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah, hi. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Michael Soares. I'm a wetland scientist with a civil environmental engineering firm here in New England called Fuss & O'Neill. And thanks for letting me remote in. I'm speaking to you from our Springfield office today. We do a range of projects in the region that are ecological restoration and climate resiliency. We get into a number of different projects where we're working on river restoration, wetland restoration, even coastal areas. And so, there's a lot of bog restoration, as I'm sure you know, in your region, going on and will continue to go on in Massachusetts. And so I just want to touch briefly on just the general sort of reasons and purpose and benefits of bog restoration. As I think Matt has already said, there's not a design for this restoration right now, so we can speak to the general the process and benefits of cranberry bog restoration. And as we go through it, if you have questions afterwards, feel free to ask to have me clarify or add some more detail. So as you probably know, because I think you've had some experience in town with cranberry bog restoration, or at least assessing if it's feasible. Bogs are created by putting an agricultural system into a native wetland. So vegetation's been cleared, they're drained, and then any waterways like a stream or anything like that are then channelized through there so that the drainage can be controlled. Then they further control it by adding a drainage irrigation system throughout the site, and then it's actively controlled by the farmers. And then an additional part of sort of the alterations and degradation from the natural system is that sand is layered on top of the existing native wetland soils. And over time, annually or just periodically, sanded surfaces are added to that cranberry bog surface so they can maintain good drainage but still provide the moisture through their irrigation systems when they want. So the objectives of restoring cranberry bog systems are really to restore the historic natural systems and areas. So trying to restore vegetated wetlands. In some situations, we have perennial streams running through, so it would be restoring the land underwater and the bank and the riverfront area as natural systems in those locations. The other main goal of bog restoration is to restore the natural hydrologic function of the site. Wetland restoration and just natural wetlands themselves are really driven by that natural hydrologic function. We've got surface water coming through in pulses from storm events. We've got groundwater that goes through seasonal high and seasonal low variations, trying to return that to the system because the wetland hydrology will be the factor that helps wetland development and then sustains a wetland that would be developing there. So success of wetland restoration really has to do with restoring that natural hydrologic function. A couple of things we do in order to restore bogs, it's often referred to as a process-based restoration. And that is something where construction activity goes on in order to create the right environment. And then we allow time to sort of create the system So in bog restoration, we don't tend to go in and plant acres and acres of wetland species, because once the sand on the surface is broken up and that native wetland soil, if it was built in an existing wetland, those native wetland soils often have a huge seed bank of wetland seeds, and even after being dormant for decades, even in one growing season, it's pretty remarkable. You can find some great examples online of seeing just in one season how the native seed bank and wetland soils will immediately vegetate a restored bog system. So that process is one principle that drives how the restoration is done. It's also very much a data-driven design process. We need to understand biological factors, like are there rare species on the site or near the site when construction is implemented? What are the adjacent habitats that we might be connecting bogs to? Are there existing hydraulic systems that we want to be aware of? Are there large groundwater nearby, a large scrub shrub wetland? Is there a stream adjacent to or running through the bog system? So again, back to that hydraulic driver. So we also have abiotic systems or non-biological systems, and that would be the soils on site, primarily the soils on site. And so what we do in a bog restoration is we want to restore that hydrology, that natural water function, and we want to restore the sort of surface of the bog that it can grow wetland plants. And so the way we do that in the bogs is it's called roughening or decompacting that cranberry mat that's on the surface and that sand, which can be a foot or up to 2 feet thick. So machinery would be used to sort of roughen and mix that with a native wetland soil, if there's wetland soils under that bog surface, to sort of break it up and add some microtopography. If you ever look into a wetland, you'll see that it's not a flat surface the way the bog is. It's a sort of hummocky, up and down, uneven surface. And we're often trying to recreate that using the excavator or other equipment out in the bogs. The other thing we want to do is to remove all the infrastructure that controls water. There's a lot of hydrologic control. So the berms, the ditches, the culverts that have weirs associated with them, sometimes there's dams. We want to remove all those controls so that water can move through the site as it naturally would. We also want to try to limit human control, which has been sort of managing all that infrastructure. So in a bog restoration, you try to limit the amount of hydrologic control so that water can move through the system, surface water can move through the system, and then groundwater can interact with a shallow ground surface, and again, get back to supporting that wetland system. And
I think that's good.
Just want to say that it's important that we understand sort of existing hydrology and existing soils, because really understanding the water system and understanding the subsurface of the bogs as we go into a design really leads to the best sort of success for wetland restoration.
Right. So
and then the last thing I want to touch on really quick is just the benefits. And I know Matt touched on this quickly earlier. But right now we have a very simplified ecological system being agriculture. That's just sort of the way agriculture is successful. But when you diversify the system, or you go from this simplified system back to a diverse system, that more biological diversity and habitat diversity, we get ecological health increases from that. So we also get improved public health when we have more diverse and more successful ecological systems.
Hey, Mike.
So that system diversity, first of all, will give us better habitat for higher abundance of species and diversity of species. So fish, turtles, amphibians, invertebrates, and so on. We also have really good potential to improve water quality, both in Quaker Run and then downstream, with the decrease in pesticide use. Nutrients will go down not only from using fertilizer,
Can you hear us?
Reduction in fertilizer, but also, vegetation, wetland plants will be uptaking nutrients that are passing through in surface water. So overall, you get a reduction, a nutrient load reduction because of the restoration. And then the last thing I would say in terms of the benefit is just, natural systems and especially wetlands and low-lying areas like this provide a lot of buffering capacity.
Mike, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mike?
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
One of the commissioners had a question.
Yeah, so for the sake of time, we've only
Yeah,
made it
just-
through 1.5 hearings in the last
Yep.
hour and a half. And
That's-
this is gonna come back before us. So I think once we can see some either 25 or 75% plans for the restoration of the bog, that would be more appropriate.
I'm sorry, the call cut out for a minute. Could we start again with that comment? I apologize.
I think one of the commissioners said that the information you've provided is good at this point, and they want to move on to other questions. And we appreciate the information on bog restoration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So with that, I will turn it over to the commission and answer any questions and look for your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners that would like to ask a direct question or a comment at this stage, or?
I have a few, Paul.
Sure, Steve.
Okay, Matt, will Quaker Run be maintained for the agricultural use downstream?
That's part of what's going, when we get into the detailed plans, because there are bogs elsewhere there as far as coordinating that. The Quaker Run for the restoration area will be restored, and it will be, into a,
Sinuous
winding
cold water
path, won't be a
forever.
straight channel, et cetera. But then there's going to be coordination. That's really where it gets into the hydraulic aspect
Okay.
that Mike was referring to.
Okay. And then you can provide landscape plan for around the buildings?
Yeah,
and so forth?
absolutely.
Okay. Since I don't have an existing plan with the existing elevations, because I know that area really well. I'm right down the street from there, and I played golf there numerous times. Are you proposing to raise the grade on Crimson Lane and around these new buildings?
It's actually going to, the grade, and you guys should have, the original submission does have all that information, so hopefully you received that, just so,
Yeah,
just
probably,
FYI.
we got it online, but I
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
pick it up. I
But
don't
it does,
have a
yeah,
copy
but so
of it.
coming in off of Quiniquisette, the grade comes up, it just goes down slightly right
Yeah.
off Quiniquisette, just from a drainage standpoint on the road, but then comes up, and it's fill initially, there's a profile in the plan set, and it's actually, when you get up to about where the house is, there's actually a little bit of a cut there,
Right.
and then it rolls back down.
So you're not going to really, you're just going to work with the existing grades?
Yeah, it's not, yeah, I mean, it's probably a couple of feet of fill at the beginning and a couple of feet of fill cut at the high.
Okay, and then the existing groundwater level there,
Yep, and we submitted that, I believe, in the report as well. The high groundwater is around elevation 13.
okay, what's the existing elevation?
Yeah, it
split
varies from 15, 16 up to 22. So the basement areas, some of the basements, and that's part of the discussion that we've been having with the team, with the Willow Bend team. Some of the basements may be in groundwater by a foot. There's a design that we can
So
do.
most
to-
likely to be crawl spaces, not
They
full
won't, yeah,
basement?
they do want to do basements, but there's dialogue on that, understanding, want to keep it just, for multiple reasons out of the groundwater.
Yeah, can you
we
provide
so-
like cross-sections on that and?
A cross-section on a basement?
Yeah, where the
is that-
groundwater is versus the foundations
yep.
and things like that, that'll help out there too. And then which was the other question I think I had? And then you mentioned that a lot of these patios are going to be pervious patios and?
Yeah, I mean, there's, again, the materials aren't identified specifically, but yeah, it's a pervious material, it's not a stone, there'll be paver materials, et cetera. But again, all those 4 bays for all the impervious area, there's the 4 bays behind each unit, they're all sized to pick up, and we've called all those surfaces
And same thing,
impervious
all
from
the
a,
roof leaders are going to go
from
into
a
the
water,
four bays.
correct, yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think we're gonna end up, would we like to have them hire an outside?
I was going to ask for
Yeah.
a motion for 172-12B.
Okay.
when we're done with the questions.
Okay. Yeah, so just I still stand by that the green doesn't need to happen, but I would be interested if the developer could be strategic in leaving some like legacy trees behind. So rather than just clearing the whole lot to then build, if there are any trees worthy of saving in that area, keeping some of them, I think it would add to the value of the project and quite frankly for the cottage owners. So if that could be done, that'd be great. And let's go.
And there. Sandy, Aaron, anything? Any initial comments from the public? Yes, ma'am. Could you, yes, and can I have your name and address for the record?
You just make sure you speak your name for others.
I'm sorry, what?
You just make sure you speak your name for others.
I will. It's not a hard name.
All right.
It's famous, but not by me, by someone in New York who has a TV talk show, Wendy Williams. There was also a Wendy Williams in the Plasmatic that jumped naked out of airplanes, and she had a orange Mohican. I never met her. So,
Oh, that old trick.
huh?
That old trick,
Yeah,
jumping
that
out
old
naked.
trick, yeah. So I actually have a little statement that I wrote out. Oh, Wendy Williams, Simons Narrows Road, Mashpee, Massachusetts. I had a little statement that I had written out, but before I give my little statement, I wanted to mention some of the numbers that were mentioned by our esteemed colleague. They actually have a permit that tells them the number of units that they can have. This permit was issued by the Venerable Tom Fadala in 1987 for a certain number of units, and then the Venerable Tom Fadala, for reasons I haven't been able to find out yet, reduced the number of units that they were allowed to have in 1991. But the Venerable Tom Fadala kept one key number, 853. 853 has been written into this permit since it was first written, and that's the number of bedrooms that Willa Bend is allowed to have. Hasn't changed. All kinds of things have changed in this permit over something like 40 years. 853 is the key number here. So our esteemed town planner, Evan, counted up the number of bedrooms that they have with what they've currently built. It's already 130 bedrooms over. So they're already out of compliance with their permit. It's 130 bedrooms over what they were allowed to have, and that hasn't changed. So that's an important number to keep in there. They built somewhere like 20% more bedrooms than they're allowed to have built. Plus, when we talk about these 14 units that's now reduced to 12, because that's all they're allowed to build, we have to take a look at the marketing data, which I didn't bring. The marketing data says these are going to be 3-bedroom condos, and then with the potential to build a 4th. Wink, wink, wink. So we have to assume that these are 4-bedroom condos that they're building. If they're telling people, if you want a 4th, and I also have to point out, they've actually already, from what I can tell, marketed and sold these units. But that, I don't know anything about that, but I thought it was interesting to find that out. So they are 130 units over, and the town has yet to decide how they want to deal with that, but they do take that very seriously. The permit says clearly 853, and now they've built 130 more. So let's think about that. There are several houses under construction in Willow Bend right now that are humongous houses. Why does anybody need a house that big? I don't know. I'm happy with my 3-bedroom house. But those houses are under construction now, and it does strike me that the town could decide to have a stop work order until this mess is straightened out. I don't know. I'm just bringing up the idea.
Could you, excuse me, could you just stay with the topic at hand, and it is the proposal that we have? I don't want to hear about other houses and
All right, well,
numbers of bedrooms.
to my mind, Paul, I am speaking to that topic, and the topic is what the permit does allow them to have. And that was actually opened up by our colleague giving us the number of units. So anyway, what I want to say here is the town is very upset by this. The town would like to buy this land, and they'd like to buy the bog. The 5 acres could be a open space for the town, and the town loves the idea of it being called the Mashpee Wampanoag Chief Vern Pocknet Forest Preserve. Everybody thinks that's a great idea. We have gotten really good at restoring bogs, and there's all kinds of money available to restore bogs. So were we to buy the bog, then we would be able to restore it ourselves with all kinds of money that we can raise to restore the bog. There is enough money in the Community Preservation Fund to buy this land. And so I was asked to bring the message to you today that the town is unhappy. It's an outrageous idea that you would build 12 condos on 5 acres. What are you thinking? This is a time when the town is spending tens upon tens upon tens of millions of dollars to clean up this water. Particularly egregious is Papaneset Bay. I've lived here for 35 years, and I've paddled on that body of water 40 years because friends took me out before I bought my house here. So I have seen the degradation of Papaneset Bay over the last 20 years. I have my opinion about why that degradation happened, but Paul wants me to be polite, so I won't say it.
In brief.
Well, I'm being
Yeah,
brief.
we gotta-
We're into
Paul,
it
I'm an
now
author,
for,
Paul, and so I'm being as
we're
brief
well
as I
over the limit
possibly
right
can.
now.
We don't need 12 luxury condos on a piece of land that's right on the water, and the town would like to buy it.
Wendy, can I just ask a clarifying question? When you speak about the town, who are you speaking about?
Lots of people in town hall.
Okay.
And the word from lots of people in town hall is very adamant, this isn't going to go anywhere. So I will bring you up to date. It's unlikely that it will go through at the planning board at this time. My opinion, not an official opinion, just my opinion. I'm not an official anybody, I'm just an old lady. But it's probably not going to go through at planning board at this time, which will make the town very happy. So I just thought you guys should know that, and Paul doesn't want me to talk anymore, so he
well,
won't.
we want to move on. But I
What?
would like you to come back, if you can update us on information in terms of initiatives to purchase the property through the town, because I'm not aware of
Tell me whatever you
it.
want to know.
If you can, that would be great.
I will come back every meeting, because I should also point out that I live in the neighborhood. I live on Simon's Narrows Road, and the town is, the neighborhood, let me not say the town, the neighborhood is very upset about some building that has happened on Quiniquisette, right behind the homes of some people very much loved by the town. And that construction there has made people very upset, and the neighborhood is getting sick and tired of the traffic on Quiniquisette.
Okay.
This will be on the other side of the major golf course stuff, and we don't want to have more golf carts going back and forth across our road when we're trying to get places.
Great. Thank you. Staying on the topic, is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Seeing none. Drew, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, just a couple of brief things. Just to expand on the vernal pool assessment, you all have this in your comments, but I did go out to perform an assessment of any vernal pool characteristics associated with the isolated vegetated wetland. Most of the area, and I'll just use this satellite image, up in this area here, very little to no surface water, although certainly fact wet and obligate species present in this area. And then down here, you got into an area of more surface water and more of what you would think visually a wetland should look like. So the whole area was assessed. This was done on April 13th. I chose that date because in the days leading up to that, I also referenced some other known vernal pool sites and confirmed the presence of egg masses for mole salamanders and wood frogs and wood frog audio calls. So I thought that was an appropriate time to conduct an assessment of this wetland. And without reading it verbatim, there were no indications of any mole salamanders, wood frogs, or any egg masses of either species. I did not see any indication of fairy shrimp or caddisfly larvae, which are also obligate vernal pool species, or any other species that are listed on the Mass Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program as far as obligate vernal pool species currently. So it's not any sort of official determination, it's just an observation that I conducted. But I would say that I'm not surprised that there weren't any vernal pool species, because when you look at the surrounding area of this kind of wooded island, if you
They
will,
can't get there.
there's no upland habitat, so it's not surprising to see no vernal pool characteristics associated with it. So just as an FYI to the commissioners, I also just wanted to highlight some of the regulations that you should be looking into if you want to just get more information on the standards that each type of wetland has and what the thresholds of alteration are for each. And this is just so you're aware of, you know, what is acceptable and what would trigger mitigation or, you know, what do you call it, like a variance or a waiver of certain standards based on mitigation. So those are regulations 19 under Chapter 172, which deals with freshwater wetlands, Regulation 20, which is wildlife habitat evaluations, and if you were to require the hiring of an outside consultant, it's Reg 20 that would be most applicable to what sort of evaluation that should be for freshwater wetlands and isolated land subject to flooding and isolated vegetated wetlands, bordering vegetated wetlands. So Regulation 22 also deals with isolated land subject to flooding. And then, of course, Reg 30, prevention of pollution, 31, nitrogen loading and lawn standards, and 33, riverfront. And then for the State Act, 10.55, bordering vegetated wetlands, and 10.56, land under water bodies and waterways, 10.57, land subject to flooding, bordering and isolated, and then 10.58, which is riverfront. So it's a lot. Obviously, it's a lot of wetlands. It's a lot of standards to look through. It's a lot to digest overall. From my overall general observation and in making many site visits out there with Matt and Brad Holmes from ECR, the wetland consultant, I believe that this is conceptually looks like it would provide a net environmental benefit by restoring riverfront habitat, which is what I think the center focus of this is in terms of what's being mitigated for. It is a 2-to-1 ratio of mitigation when you fill wetlands. You have to replicate on a 2-to-1, and there's many other standards that I won't go into specifically, but those regulations that I mentioned under the bylaw, particularly 19, 20, and 22, those are the ones you really want to focus on if you want to see exactly what's involved in a replication scenario. And it's involved. And sometimes it can be so involved the commission may be empowered or wish to require a performance bond associated with it, which has been done before when wetlands were proposed to be filled for a housing, single-family home project. So just to put that out there as FYI for your reference. And I don't have any recommendations as far as, you know, a decision at this point, just giving you reference material. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Very helpful.
Okay. Before we go any further, I looked at the original plans, and I know now we've got some revised plans. And Matt, I believe you've asked for a continuance with Planning Board to a date in June sometime?
Yeah, June 7th, I believe, yeah.
And do you anticipate that the plan that we now have, the revised plan, you anticipate changes there as well?
No, that, actually, the plan that I just gave to you tonight, that is the plan that went back to the planning board. There was just some process issues that Jack McElhenney and town planner Evan went through as far as process, and that's why the continuance was asked for last night till the 7th. But that layout is what I submitted, that was addressing all of the planning board comments. And again, I believe we've addressed most of what they were asking for. I think that most of the planning board members were, thought that it was a good project. The Quiniquisette buffer was the one where that's where we had the most dialogue on, but most of the commissioners, not all, agreed that, they thought we were at 40 feet before, so they said somewhere between 40 feet and 100 feet, and so we were kind of talking around, and, so that at 60 to 70 foot range, I think that they were,
Yeah.
thinking that that was a reasonable buffer. So it wouldn't change before the 7th, but obviously, based on comments from the planning board further, based on comments from you, what I want to probably try to not necessarily do, I'll say, is get into the revising of all of the grading and stormwater, just, positioning. It's just, it's the same scope of what you've seen. It's just, it has to be re-identified, and I want to, we're going to do that for sure, but it's just, there's a lot of effort and cost to do that. And so I want to make sure when we're doing that, that we're at least hopefully landing on a consensus of what's making sense to everybody, so that we're not going through an exercise of doing a very detailed revision and then having to do it again and again.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion under our Wetlands Bylaw 17212B to bring in an outside consultant engineer to review what's before us. It is a very complex, the project narrative that I looked through was 341 pages, give or take a few drainage calculations. And I know I went through an entire set of plans only to find out everything, it's not 14, it's 12.
It's not,
That's
yeah,
why I was asking these questions. Are we there yet, or is it going to substantially change? Because I don't want to, if the motion comes and it gets approved to go to outside review, I don't want to start reviewing something that's going to be different a month from now.
that's what we are, we're in a little bit of a catch-22, right?
Sure.
With you folks and the planning board, and so I'm trying to hopefully get
Yeah.
it to, so I think that plan that I gave to you tonight, again, I can't speak for the planning board, but just based on the hearings that we have had and dialogue with the board members, I think that plan goes, 95% there. I mean,
Just
so
about there. So if we were to start the process, we'd probably be okay, and I don't know. We've never done this, well, at least all the time I've been on the commission.
Yeah, we did it once before for some single-family homes on Old Barnstable Road, but I don't think you were on the commission at that
So
point.
in length of time, if this motion comes and gets approved and we decide to go out, how do you see that in terms of finding a suitable engineer?
Right.
And getting the process started, so if we can kind of sync with their timeframe.
Yeah, so I would draft a request for proposals, send it out to at least 3 companies that I feel would be well qualified as, to review and do a peer review of the notice of intent and all the documents and plans. And, response should happen within the next, the following week, the remainder of that week and into the next week. Then it would basically come back with the 3 responses, and you would decide at the next meeting, at a public meeting, which one you would want to go with. They would all have estimates of costs, based on the services, and the services would be outlined. I would use the exact same template that I used. The last one, actually, I was mistaken. It was not for, that was filling of wetlands of the Old Barnstable properties. The last time the commission required the hiring of an outside consultant was for a proposed bridge to Gooseberry Island. So I will use the exact same template as we did for that one, in terms of soliciting consulting assistance.
Drew, can I ask you a question on that? So if I agree, Mr. Chairman, with that concept. It's so complicated. Reminds us all, as smart as we think we are, well, what we need to look at more closely, and particularly all the regs that Drew cited, the state laws that, have an impact over this. So I'm wondering if it also takes care of and gives us the opportunity to review all of those regs. With this process, in other words, bring in an outside consultant, all right, go through the process, would it include an opportunity for the commissioners to have a greater understanding and have a feedback on particularly the regulations? Because they are very complex. I tried to review a few of them after I saw your, and, it took me back to law school, which wasn't pleasant. So I wonder,
Sure.
would that be covered by that?
I don't believe so.
I'm not sure I understood the question entirely.
If we hire the consultant, would the process for the commission include a review, not just among ourselves, but with the consultant?
Oh, yeah.
On the impact of all of these regs?
Yes, so the consultant we've brought into a meeting of the commission
Yeah.
to give their findings based on a peer review and, what it is specifically that we're looking to get clarified, in all of the application materials. They would attend a meeting, you would have a back and forth with the consultant and the applicant, and, so they would be part of the
Well, I
review
tend to
process.
favor that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like bringing in a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we hire an outside consultant for a peer review for this project, which is, let me get the correct name here, which is Southwest Mashpee Properties LLC, 275 Quiniquisette Avenue. And then, do we need to make a motion to continue this hearing to a
Well, let's
future date, or
let's
just have
get-
two motions?
Let's get this business done first, and then we'll go to a continuation.
Okay.
I'd rather keep the two motions separate.
I'll second that.
All right, so there's a motion then to bring in an outside engineer, peer review, and a second. Any discussion, further discussion amongst this motion by the commissioners? No, none? Okay, let me call a vote on that. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we will pursue that opportunity. And now the continuance. If we have a date and time, do you want to
So we
go
would continue in
beyond the
June, right?
7th? Is that what you said, the 17th? What's your date of planning board?
Yeah,
again?
it's the 7th.
June 7th.
The 7th.
I'm going to say probably yes. Again, there's a catch, we have a catch-22, because, the planning board wants the commission's feedback as well, so, but I would say probably, just after the 7th, and, there's probably going to have to be, unfortunately, right, a couple of back and forth, I think.
That's intentional.
Well, well, by the time we get to our next meeting, that
Yeah, the
would
May
be-
18th meeting is actually, it's extended, it's more than 2 weeks away, so it's greater gap between the meetings, so if that's, and if anything comes up where that's not a good, date you can always request again
yeah.
to.
Wait, wouldn't we be doing it for after the June 7th meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yeah,
after June
yeah,
7th.
sorry, June 7th, yeah, so we'd be looking at, June 15th is our next.
The 15th, okay.
Public meeting after
Okay.
that, yeah, and that should be more than enough time to get
Yeah.
Get the,
RFP out and
Yeah.
responses in and, yeah.
Great.
yeah.
okay.
So this would be June 15th at 6:03 PM.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
and-
Chairman, I make a motion to.
Before you do.
Yeah.
And then for clarification, we would go through the RFP process, and we could have that for our next meeting, technically. right?
Technically, you could have it for the June 15th,
And then
I'm
we-
sorry, the May
The May
18th.
18th,
Yeah.
and we could select a particular vendor
Yes,
and get that process done and in place for the next meeting, which would be the 15th, right?
right.
Or am I leaping over? a
No.
meeting?
If
No,
we
that's-
if we get responses,
If we get,
Yeah.
realistically.
Typically, they come back feeling, though,
Well,
I know?
everybody's pretty busy right
Yeah.
now, too. It's the-
Everyone's busy.
Could I just make a point? I'm just thinking on the third-party consultant. Because if they, right now, the full plan set and all the calculations are based on that initial submission. I haven't gone through and revised all of the drainage and everything with the revised layout, which we know it's going to go to at least that, and then whatever adjustments. So it seems that it would be a little bit of a waste of time for the consultant to review all of the
Right.
information that's submitted right now, even though it's going to be in the same line of scope. So I'm just throwing that out there,
Right.
and I'm
Yeah.
looking for direction. And again, I can, I'll have to consult with Willabend. So we're saying June 15. I mean, I could get, if that's what the commission wants, for us to go through the revision of all of the stormwater calculations, the whole 9 yards, so now you have a complete updated package and then that's probably what the consultant would want to review. There's no, we definitely won't be able to have that for what we're talking about, the May 15th meeting.
May 18th, yeah.
But you could at least maybe get them hired.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we get an updated package to them.
And that will be reflected in the RFP that there's more revisions coming, and, so at least we get that part of the process going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
so-
Yeah,
that makes
I don't
sense.
want to get a person and have them review the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be
exactly.
folly.
Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, I'm curious, I should know this, but I don't. Who pays for the consultant? Do we?
The applicant,
The applicant,
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I was trying to stick you with it.
It's very
No,
generous,
I'm-
it's very
I'm kidding.
generous of them.
I just want,
Okay. Okay, Steve, I'd be all set now for a
Okay.
continuance motion.
Make a motion to continue this hearing to June 15th at 6:05 PM
It's
for
3.
Southworth.
Sorry, my 5 and 3 is listed.
Oh,
6:03.
6:03 PM for Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, 275 Quiniquisette Avenue.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion on the continuance? We're good?
I do. I just have one thing to say. If there are gonna be revisions done before June 15th,
Yep.
I really don't see a compelling need to create the village green in a wetland, to create a grass field in a wetland. It's not like it's for houses. I mean, there's a small section that is for a dwelling that is kind of filling in that wetland a little bit, but, I feel like you're wasting your time with that one. Like, I don't see the compelling need for a village green in a currently existing vegetated wetland.
No, understood. And
Okay.
point taken, I'll review with Will Ben, and then maybe what I'll do too is just as you get the third-party consultant on board, et cetera, I can coordinate with you, Drew,
Yeah.
so that we're trying to dovetail everything the
Yeah.
best we can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
all
then.
very much for your time
Let me-
tonight. I
let me take
really
the vote.
appreciate it.
Did
Yeah.
we got to
Oh,
vote.
sorry.
This might not pass. No other discussion? We're good? Okay. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Yes.
Sandy? Yes. I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
good job,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
2 hours in, we got 2 done, guys.
I was just gonna say.
When it rains, it pours.
Please, yeah.
Now calling the 6:06 hearing for Linda S. Smith, trustee, and John G. Weigel, the fourth trustee, 33 Sturgis Lane. This is a proposed extension of a seasonal pier. Representative is BSC Group. It's a notice of intent. Do we have a representative online? Bear with us for a
Good
moment.
evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz. I'm a wetland scientist with BSC, and I'll just give a brief presentation on the project in front of us. So this is a notice of intent filing for 33 Sturgis Lane, representing Linda Smith, as stated before. So the purpose of this project is pretty simple. The existing seasonal pier, which can be seen on the plan, does not extend to a depth that is deep enough to -3 mean low water to allow for them to dock their sailboat, which they currently have. The permit for this seasonal pier does allow for this extension. They just hadn't had that before, so this is just to officially put that in place for that extended section of the pier. So this pier segment is going to be placed within the resource areas of Mashpee Pond, which is a great pond, Natural Heritage, Priority Habitat, and Inland Bank. We did reach out to Natural Heritage and submitted a MESA checklist, and we received the comment letter, or at least the determination, I believe, that there was no take in this situation. The reason for that being that there won't be any disturbing of the soil. The footings of this extension of the pier will match the existing seasonal pier, so they just rest on the bottom of the pond. They don't need to dig in. There's no permanent structures associated with that. So the impacts involved is a 12-foot extension. So this is 48 square feet of extension to the existing seasonal pier. And as I said, no permanent structure associated with that. We will observe time of year restrictions, especially if Natural Heritage recommends time of year restrictions to be in place, but it's unlikely that they will, again, considering there's not going to be much disturbing of the soil. And of course, the time of year restrictions for placing this seasonal pier will be adhered with. So at this time, I would like to turn it back over to the Commission for questions.
Thank you. Okay. I'll ask commissioners first if they have questions or comments based on the presentation. Any questions? No?
Has the pond level gone down? Like, why wasn't it built initially deep enough?
Do you want to ask that of the
Do you know
consultant?
the answer to that?
No.
Okay. No, that's okay.
No?
She probably can't hear me.
My question would be, I'm looking at the relocated pier sections, the two of them, and it appears as though, is it larger, the end of the pier, or is it the same size? Is there any
It's
increase?
going to be the same size.
So the end of the, it's the same, right?
Yeah, it's the same width as the existing. Yep.
So there's no increase in
No.
size? Okay.
Is the property currently vegetated? Like, the pictures in the plan from 2021, has any of that bank been planted yet? I haven't been out.
Much of it has. I believe that Drew can speak to this better because he did a site walk with Matt Creighton of BSC in association with the current open order of conditions associated with the house. So I believe it's mostly planted. There's just some areas of the restoration mitigation area that needed to be planted, right, Drew?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Yep. So those areas that were waiting to be planted, I believe, were slated to be planted this week. So as of now, all areas that were disturbed and areas that required mitigation should have been planted. But it's in far better shape than it is currently. Those are just the photos we had, so we just tacked them onto the report. But it's certainly much different right now.
Are the steps down to the pier going to need to be replaced?
I don't, not to my knowledge, there doesn't seem to be any issue with them, and it's not proposed.
It's just extending the pier. Yes.
It looks like.
It's just the pier extension.
Just
There's
the
no
pier.
other proposed work.
I understand that that's what's being proposed. I'm asking if they're going to still have to do the steps anyway.
So, yeah, the steps are new. You can see there.
They've been done.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is all part of the permit previously issued order.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's fine.
No other questions? Questions from the public on this proposal? None? Drew, anything you want to add to what was presented? Or?
Yeah, just briefly. So Natural Heritage did issue a letter of no take, as described by Hannah, and the reasons. It's very minimal disturbance from installation. Harbor Master has no navigational concerns. The adjacent docks are, there's plenty of separation from adjacent seasonal docks. And Shellfish defers to Natural Heritage when it comes to freshwater mussels. No other comments?
Okay, then. I would entertain a motion for a
Okay.
close an issue.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for Linda S. Smith, trustee, and John G. Weigel, the fourth trustee, 33 Sturgis Lane, for close an issue with standard conditions associated with freshwater seasonal docks.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alex. Any discussion amongst the commissioners on the motion? Hearing none. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quick.
Yeah.
See, things are
Don't
speeding.
jinx us.
Things are speeding up. Sooner or later, you've got to get one. Easy. 6:09. Now calling the 6:09 hearing, Jonathan J. Salome, 202 Daniels Island Road, proposed in-ground pool. Representative Marsh Matters Environmental, owner of record, MC Massachusetts, NOM. Continued from 3/23 and 4/6/23. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Ball from Marsh Matters Environmental. I'm a wetland scientist and regulatory compliance consultant. I'm here before you again representing John Salami, who's the applicant, 202 Daniels Island Road. We were last before you, originally before you on March 23rd after a March 9 NOI filing. We were last before you on April 6th. The last document or exhibit we submitted to you was on April 28, cover letter with an updated site plan. This plan was revised to address some of the concerns and questions you had at the last hearing, and I can just run through those very quickly what they were. So there was a question about increasing the proximity of the pool footprint to the top of the nearest slope to 4 feet, and the current plan does address that. We have made looks like a 4.1 foot separation from footprint to top of slope. You wanted the revegetation area, which is not a mitigation area, but that area within the dog fence to be clearly marked on the plan, or more clearly marked on the plan, and add labeling as to the removal of that fencing. So that updated plan does now show that. We added the 3 trees that had been topped at some time looks like right inside the fenced-in area. We've added those 3 trees and shown the 3 trees that we'd be planting to replace those trees that were damaged. Sorry? That's an old plan. That looks like an old plan. Let's see. Find it.
We do have the good one in front
Yeah,
of us.
Yeah, they have the new one.
You got the new one, okay. Yeah.
Been a massive submission of plans this week, so.
Yeah, I totally understand. I'm glad you have the hard copies, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so fence has been shown as to be removed. That's around the revegetation area. We've hatched the revegetation area on the revised plan so that it's clear to you. We've shown the 3 trees that were topped and are showing 3 to be planted in their place without removal of those 3 top trees. The pool fence, there was question about why the pool fence had been down so low on the bank. Really, the fence was down that low, so basically it couldn't be seen when you're on that level area. So they wanted to have that fence all the way down and then wrap around to the road side of the property. That fence has been removed entirely, so they will not need to have a fence. I believe it's an auto cover. That is.
We matched the fence to the limit of work. It's noted on the
Yeah,
Oh, it's not on the plan,
it's still
okay.
there, yeah.
Sorry about that, yep. I'm thinking of another, I do so many pools these days, it's just unbelievable. Some of them are auto cover, some of them have fence. So that fence is now along the top of the slope, so off the coastal bank. We did, let's see here, revegetation area, trees, pool security fence, proximity of footprint to slope. I think those were the 6 different things that we addressed. Fence location. I will mention, as you can see on the plan, that the mitigation area mitigation has been provided on the plan itself. So what Canal has shown on the plan mirrors the mitigation that I provided on those individual sheets. I believe there were 2 or 3. We added the mitigation calculation table to the plan, and I believe those are the changes to this plan. So Again, I'll reiterate, I do believe this project does meet the performance standards. It is a project that will not impact the actual functioning of the coastal bank being the closest resource area to the project. And I believe the mitigation we've proposed does meet your standard, and therefore we are not, as we mentioned at the last hearing, not seeking any relief from those regulations. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll go to commissioners first. If there's any questions or comments on what we have
No,
now.
looks good. Looks like the applicant has taken care of all of our concerns from our last meeting. So, yeah.
Everybody's good? Just for the commissioners, not so much for the applicant, the only outside concern I have is that when the pool is being excavated, I would like to have an agent there, just in case there's substantial root damage. There's some trees there that are pretty close. And until you start digging, you don't know what you're dealing with. And if it were to be determined that there's going to be some substantial damage, we might want to have to look at some extra mitigation. I don't know where it will go.
Good
but
idea.
It's tight. That's a really tight spot.
Yeah.
And I would hate to see, especially the cedar tree that's near the roadway. I mean, that one, I'd hate to see something happen to that. So I would think about that as we get to a motion. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. All the things that we asked for have been done, which is great.
Great. Yeah.
I thought there was only 2 top trees. There's 3, huh?
I believe there's
3.
yeah, there were 3.
There's 3.
I knew there was 2. I could see those on my picture, but I didn't see the 3rd. Okay. Any questions from the public? Comments? No? Drew, anything you want to add?
Dan?
Yeah. So yeah, he definitely covered it good. I'll just read the agent comments over. Proposed pool patio, landscaping, hardscaping, mitigation plans. Proposed revisions to reduce the overall scope of work. They increase original setbacks from top to coastal bank and increase proposed mitigations to meet the required mitigation standards for a waiver request. There are 2 distinct triggers for mitigation requests. On this coastal bank conducted by the current homeowners. Oh, I missed it. The first is to address the unauthorized clearing on the coastal bank conducted by the current homeowners, specifically within the fenced area in the backyard. Second mitigation trigger is for the proposed pool project of itself as part of the waiver request. While the project does not meet the waiver criterion or demonstration of compelling need for a pool, the overall project scope is proposed over existing lawn and is relatively minor in scope as far as actual impact to the coastal bank and associated performance standards. The project will not result in an adverse impact to the bank itself in the terms of wildlife habitat alteration or drainage patterns and bank stability. Drawdown of pool water can be conditioned to address any concerns related thereto. Should the commission not grant a waiver and vote to deny this project, the mitigation of the unauthorized vegetation clearing and top trees would still be required, and compliance would be achieved through the issuance of a enforcement order to the current homeowner. So the agent recommends close and issue with conditions of pool water withdrawal protocols and submission of a 3-year mitigation maintenance and monitoring contract between the homeowner and a qualified wetland consultant, horticulturalist, or landscape prior to any building. And as part of that, also, I had a couple conditions that I would recommend for this project because of some concerns that the commissioners have had about this project. So no draining into a wetland at any time is just pretty much a standard. I won't take any chances of anything of that nature. So, and I had a weekly certified engineer report, but as Paul stated, if we had an agent on site, I think that would cover that sufficiently and, quite frankly, quicker than an engineer report would.
Right.
Yeah. So those are the 5 conditions that I had.
So you would, one of you guys would go there weekly, that's just to check on it?
When they're physically excavating the pool.
So during,
We would be there on
During
site.
that specific.
During that time period?
Okay.
That way we'd be able to see any root damage to any of the trees. Also, if there is any threat to the bank itself, we would be able to see on the spot without waiting for a weekly monitor report to come in. at the end of the week.
Okay, so hypothetically, if that happens though, then what? So if there is damage to root systems, What do we do?
So if there's damage to a root system and the tree is compromised, if it's minor and the tree can regrow it, you would see how the tree itself would fare through the rest of the 3 years or whatever the minor contract. If the tree needs to be taken down, they would have to replace it in kind.
In kind, okay. Okay.
Then that could be worded in a condition of the permit to that effect.
If I can just ask a question about the condition about machinery, does that include, I've seen landscape contractors use this, when there's mass plantings and they're putting in shrubs, they have this, it's almost like a,
Handheld auger.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. Is that what
No,
you're thinking about
That
tracks?
condition's mainly for tracks or
Okay.
tires or anything of
So
that
something,
nature.
if they were,
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
That's fine,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, if it's a hand auger, I know they have like 2-person hand augers now that are
Yeah.
gas powered, so that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for a closing issue for Jonathan J. Salemi, 202 Daniel Island Road, with the conditions that submission of a signed 3-year mitigation, maintenance, and monitoring contract between the homeowner and a qualified wetland consultant, horticulturist, or landscaper to the Conservation Department prior to any building permit sign-off. Other conditions are no draining into a wetland resource at any time, use of a pump truck for a pool water drawdown, the 3-year monitoring, which I mentioned, work on a coastal bank to done manually by hand, no machinery on the coastal bank, which is track machinery or wheeled machinery for detail. And then agent site visit during excavation to review any damage to the coastal bank or trees nearby. And if any trees are damaged, to be replaced in kind.
Perfect, you nailed it. I'll second.
Quick.
That was great.
We're all afraid of that one.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the floor for discussion by commissioners. Any further?
Handily done.
Good job, Mike. We
Yeah.
pushed you on this one.
Well, we appreciate all your consideration and concern.
Okay, then I'll do a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
You're shorter and you have less hair, but you did well.
Okay.
Okay. Now calling the 6/12 hearing for Thomas J. and Michelle Guard, trustees of TM Guard Nominee Trust, 409 Montmoscoy Road.
One by one.
Proposed pier pile replacement and maintenance, Representative Cape and Islands Engineering. This is an RDA. We have,
I think they're out in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out in the hallway. I'll go get 'em.
okay. 409,
No, here they are.
409, here they are.
That'll teach you. Yeah.
I've opened the hearing already, gentlemen, so if you'd like to come up and have a seat, tell us who you are for the record, and we can get started.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, and Steve Guard, attorney and representing the applicant for this project. The project at 409 Montmoscoy Road is a repair to an existing pier. The wetland resources are land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, marsh, salt marsh, and there is a little bit of a coastal bank. The pier is a licensed pier, and what's happened at the site is that several of the existing piles have been deteriorating around the tidal section of the pile. So what the homeowner wanted to do is just replace those piles, which are kind of centered on the pier and is kind of in that mean low water range. When we went and visited the site to take a look at these piles, we also noticed that the cross braces are also rotting away. So at the same time, since we're going to be replacing these piles, we're going to replace the cross braces between these piles to take advantage of having the crane out there to do this work. This project, it may seem familiar to some of you. A couple of months ago or a month ago, the portion on the landward side of this site received an order of condition for a new garage and lofts above the garage. So the site is familiar. This same property developer or homeowner also owns the property to the south, which is 411 Monomoskoy. And part of that project included a new pier that was approved by this board last month. So this work is all going to be happening together. So once he has a crane out there to do the work for the new pier on 411, he's going to take advantage to do this repair to this pile. There's no change in configuration to the existing structure. It's just a matter of replacing those failing piles and the cross braces. So we believe it's fairly simple just to approve this RDA for just that repair. And we hope to get a permit from this board. If there's any questions?
All construction from the water, too.
Yes, all the construction is going to be done from the water.
From the water. Okay. Is that it?
That's it, yes.
All right, I'll open it up to commissioners for questions or concerns that you might have on this project.
No, all set.
Ladies, nothing? Okay. I know on 411, that was the pier that we had to kind of transit over a tiny bit. And there was a lot of concern about the cedar that was right there on the bank. So I just wanted to mention that again. If you're going to be doing both of these at the same time, I think we're in complete agreement that cedar and the associated bushes that were with it were not going to be disturbed.
Right. Subsequent to the closing of that hearing, I did submit a revised plan to conservation with the angle that was discussed to avoid that one shrub.
Just a couple of degrees, right?
So it is in the file. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to refresh everybody's memory on that one. Okay, then. No other questions? I'll go to the public. Any questions? None? Drew, anything you want to add?
Just briefly, you said all work is occurring from the water, so when it comes to the, what was it, the bracing, so that portion of the work?
Cross brace?
The cross brace, is that all gonna be pre-cut, so there's no shavings or anything like that? It's gonna be cut like over the water, so?
Usually, the installation of the pile is
Yeah.
done from the water. The
Yeah.
cross bracing are installed from the crane, which is on the water.
So it's gonna be
But there's a normal condition for pier projects where all the cutting of timber is done on the upland side.
Okay.
So we're good with that condition.
Okay.
This is an existing pier, so even though the work is done from the water, they can carry material through the pier.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. So because there is no new disturbance to land containing shellfish, there is no shellfish mitigation fee considered. And Harbor Master has no concerns because the position of the fixed pier is not changing. So, good to go. Those.
Okay, then. Great, thanks. I would entertain a motion if there is one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, make a motion for a negative determination for Thomas J. Michelle Guard trustees, TM Guard nominee trust, 409 Monomoskoye Road.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. We have a motion that's been made and seconded on the floor for discussion amongst commissioners. If there is any further discussion, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
You win the prize tonight for the shortest presentation in positive budget.
There is
That's
no.
right, they had the longest wait, they didn't complain.
There's a traffic light at the Sagamore Bridge. I gotta get out of here.
There is.
I lived here for 30 years. There was no traffic light.
That's
Now there's a traffic
terrible.
light.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Where do they start building them? Now calling the 6:15 hearing for Timothy W. Leadham, trustee, Shoestring Bay nominee, Trust 2, 352 Mashpee Neck Road, proposed gravel parking area relocation of shed landscaping and mitigation plantings, Representative Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from April 20th, 2023. And there has been a request to continue this hearing again
I'll
to
move.
June 15th at 6 o'clock. And it also says on your agenda that it is scheduled for the Zoning Board of Appeals on May 24th.
I'll make a motion to continue.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Open for discussion amongst commissioners.
Let's do it.
I have a question, maybe you can help out, Drew. This is scheduled for ZBA. What is the justification?
Oh, so they have to, because it has an existing house on the lot.
Yeah.
And
It's
the
down there
proposal is to provide overflow parking for commercial marina, the Mashpee Neck Marina.
Right.
So there needs to be a zoning, I don't know the exact details, but basically you have it zoned right now residential.
The
And
change
if you're
of
gonna be
use.
proposing, yeah, change of
Oh,
use for a
okay.
parking lot, you have to change the use, the zoning designation
see.
for the lot, so that's what they're,
So it's just a zoning change.
the zoning change,
Okay.
correct?
It's
Yeah.
like a special permit.
I didn't know they were raising that building out of there.
Yeah.
That
No, they
building
plan
stay-
on keeping, I think they're gonna use it for office space, is the intent, although I
And-
don't know for sure.
It's a bathroom trailer that's down below that, where the
Yeah.
shed is?
Yeah,
That's gone, right?
I believe so,
I
yeah.
believe that was.
I didn't see it there.
Yeah, it was,
No, it was
I think
there
it.
today.
Oh, was it?
Oh, was it? Okay.
It's
Oh, so
still
it wasn't
there.
there in the other.
Because I looked at it and I thought, that's a bathroom? But it's got, it's got hoses coming out of it and skylights on it.
They had like a small like office area down there. I think that was taken away when they revamped the whole parking scheme at the marina itself, so that's what. But that's the reason.
Yeah.
is the, change of use.
Well, we'll hear more about that on the 15th, I believe.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, then, no further discussion. I will take a vote on the motion. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously. 15th. Okay. Moving on to the 6:18 hearing for Ryan and Crystal Lenhart, 81 Bluff Avenue, proposed raise and replace existing dwelling, upgrade septic system with new IA Title V system, landscaping and hardscaping, Representative Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from April 20th, 2023. It is a notice of intent. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. So we had previously opened this project. Some comments from the commission were related to the septic system and the retaining walls on the site. So we have done a few things to the plan. One is add the septic profile and, all the different grades associated with that and making the leach field work for the property and the project based on, Title V requirements, separation of groundwater, things like that. And we have, based on that, we have also made some revisions to the plan, both with respect to the walls needed for the septic system, but also in front of the property. So I'll just go through those. We basically, around a septic system, you need the grade to be a certain elevation so you don't have breakout. And we've shortened the wall in this area. It used to come up and wrap around here. We're able to grade down, and we've removed a section of wall. But then we started it where we need it to be around the septic system as well. We end it as far as we possibly can away from the septic system. The other change to the property is we remove the wall along the entire front of the property. We're just proposing we actually added one extra step to come down to reduce the grade. and we've removed that wall. We do still have this small section of wall. The existing paved driveway is getting removed for a stone or shell for a pervious driveway. And we don't want to change the grades there. So again, this is less than a 2-foot wall. We feel we've made the changes we could while also raising the house to the elevation 14 that's required for the AE 13 floodplain. And again, all the other setbacks, I know it's not conservation related, but setbacks are improved by this proposal, and the actual footprint of structure is actually reduced. So we feel we've tried to respond and meet the requests of the commission for this project. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, it looks like the applicant has addressed all of our needs and questions from last time for the changes, so I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions? The one question I have, I'm looking at the system profile, and this appears to be a standard Title V tank. It doesn't look to be an IA.
The note on the, regarding the, where is it? Yeah, 1,500 gallon septic tank with fast IA, on the plan view itself.
On the plan view itself.
I mean, we can submit a simple, in addition. We're definitely proposing an IA system.
Yeah, I didn't, well, the reason I'm asking, I didn't know if the size of the tank for the fast system would be the same as the standard Title V, and if we change those elevations at all. I mean, when I looked at the drawing, I thought, why is this here? It looks like a standard tank.
It will, at 3 bedrooms, yes, it's the same.
It's the same size.
Same
So those
size, but
elevations, even though this drawing is not an IA system, aren't going to change.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's intended to be an IA, yes. Unfortunately, I neglected to add the IA component to the septic tank itself on the detail, but, I mean, we can, if you want, we can definitely revise the plan. But yes, it's intended to be an IA, and the Board of Health did.
It's called out down further, which I kind of went over and didn't see, so as long as it's on this plan. And another question I have, I think, Drew, it's more for you than the representative. Is this one of the projects that we failed to advertise and had to be kicked over?
Yes.
So this does not come under.
Doesn't come under Reg 30, correct? Yeah. Yeah, no,
They don't have to, they're right, they're one of the last ones.
they were one of the
to get
last
through.
ones, yep, correct, yep.
Okay, yeah, great. That's all I had for questions or comments. Nothing else? Anything from people in the audience? No? You sure? Going once, twice? Don't want to have those other people have the shortest hearing. Any last comments, Drew, that you would like to make?
No, nothing above and beyond what's there.
All right, then, thanks. I would entertain a motion on this notice of intent.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a closing issue for Ryan and Kristen Lenhart, 81 Bluff Avenue. As presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded, up for discussion amongst commissioners. Any last-minute questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Might be number 2 as far as the fastest.
That, I think, was even quicker.
Yeah, I think it was too.
Yeah, I think so. I drove past it.
And the only thing left on our hearing agenda is the certificate of compliance request, and you can see by the agent's comments that that has passed, so if there's no questions on that, we're good. All right, that would circle us back to pre and post updates.
Yeah. I wanted to start out just with the last bullet point, which is the outcome of the town meeting as far as our proposed articles. So very, very happy to see the voters support the expansion of the buffer zone. And, you know, just to go over some housekeeping, obviously this has to meet approval at the state level through the state legislature and then the Attorney General. That process generally takes up to 90 days. It may be quicker than that, maybe longer than that, but that's the typical average timeline for that process.
Do you know who's carrying that for you?
I think it's Vieira.
It is Vieira.
Yeah, I think it's always Vieira that,
Ah.
that carries our articles to town meeting, to the state legislature, so. But I'll find out specifically.
it just-
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
His name always comes up when it's, you know, when I'm asked that question, he's always the one that
That's
does.
another piece of gratitude, though.
Yes.
And they
yeah.
do that, and they can walk it through, and they have the connection.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
So, assuming it does get passed by the state, then one of the things that we want to do fairly quickly through the bylaw review subcommittee, which I think would be a pretty simple thing to do, and we can get started on it now. There's nothing stopping us from doing this, but going through every single regulation where it states 100 feet or 50 feet, or, you know, and changing those numbers to reflect the expansion of the buffer zone. So we can get started on identifying that right away in preparation for just having it done as one amendment to a series of regulations and just get it done in one motion. There's no need to do it one regulation at a time. I'll verify that with town council just to make sure that we're not running afoul of any procedures there. But I would assume that that would be a fine approach to, acceptable approach to it. And then I already got bylaw forms from the town of Brookline, who has an 150-foot buffer zone, so they have created their own bylaw forms, obviously, to reflect that. So that's just a matter of slapping our town seal on it and pretty much borrowing the same format. There might be some tweaking here and there, but again, that'll go through the bylaw review subcommittee and then present it to the commission, so you can all agree on what the forms look like and formatting and things like that. But that, at least we have reference for that ready to go. So that's good. And yeah, I didn't really have anything else to add, other than I thought it was a great meeting. And I got to educate the public on vernal pools and their value.
This is the sexiest definition I've ever heard. It was great, yeah.
That was a
You did a great job,
curveball.
though. It should be said for the record that you did.
See how fast I got up? I think
Yeah.
that was real
Boom.
surprise.
And you know, I just want to say this, I don't mind saying this in public. It's a good thing that you did, otherwise, I would have.
Yeah.
I was ready.
Just remember that, Drew.
They are more than dirty mud puddles.
I think glorified was the actual word.
Glorified. Yeah. Well, there you go. One thing that I would, I guess, remind Alex, I filled out the doodle for our next bylaw.
Oh, yeah, I haven't yet.
I know Sandy was in there when I.
No, I'll do it.
Some of mine didn't match up with you, so I don't know where you're gonna fall in. I
Okay.
tried to put some Tuesday stuff in, because I thought Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesdays are my flexible day.
Okay,
so-
I'm pretty sure I included a Tuesday in the date range.
It was there, and I tried to, get it up to noon or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing else?
Yeah, can I ask,
I have, go ahead.
can I ask a question, or are we gonna do more updates, or what are we doing?
If anyone, I think what we've been doing is anyone has a
What's
question
here is
on any
here.
of the bullet
If
items,
it's
we can clarify.
Can I ask a question, that's not on the agenda? Is that allowed?
No.
You can,
I'm kidding.
under additional topics, this space is reserved. You can bring up an issue, as long as it's not a voting issue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm
as long as
just,
it's not a voting
I
issue.
was just looking for clarification, Drew. I'm just, I guess, wondering what happened, if you could enlighten us a little bit with what happened with 90 Cognizant Island Road.
Sure. Is that okay to delve into that?
That's a denial, right?
So we
That's-
denied it,
that's a
but I don't
denial.
think we actually get
Yes,
to deny it.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
Okay.
Did they actually what? Oh, sorry.
So essentially, the way, based on watching the video and looking at the minutes, there was, as the commission recalls, there was a motion to close the public hearing because you had received enough information at that point. You didn't want any further information submitted. And then the hearing was effectively continued for a decision at the following meeting, which was April 6th, correct?
Right.
So then the decision was rendered to deny the project, to issue a denial. So the 21-day clock was assumed to start from the date of the denial, not the date of the closing of the public hearing. And based on the superseding request that was submitted, the appeal from the property owner, their lawyer, their legal representative is claiming that the 21-day clock should have started from the date that you closed the public hearing. And the date that we actually,
discussed.
yeah.
So at that meeting, when we closed it, we discussed that we had to talk about it 2 weeks later because we only had 3 weeks to get out what our decision was. So at that meeting, we knew when we closed it that there was 21 days from closing to figure out what we were doing and get it to them.
What are they challenging?
So they're challenging that we didn't get the denial out within the 21-day period, and we didn't, based on the closing of the public hearing.
Getting it to
Yes.
the owner?
Yes. I was under the impression it was the April 6th date that started the 21-day clock. It wasn't. So if there's blame to be assessed, I'm to blame for this. It doesn't mean, it does mean unfortunately that you lose standing under the bylaw. You can't apply the bylaw standards if it's indeed upheld that we didn't adhere to the 21-day statute to get out the
Then what
decision.
happens? They have to come
Then
back
they
and
defer to
revisit
the
it?
State Wetlands Protection Act provisions, which are very similar to the bylaw, but the biggest one that, and it's kind of open-ended as far as like how the state views land subject to coastal storm flow, because currently there's no standards. It's listed as a wetland, a coastal wetland, it's verified as a coastal wetland, but they don't have any written performance standards yet under the State Wetlands Protection Act for flood zone. It doesn't mean that they can't comment on it and apply standards because it is listed as a resource area. So it doesn't, I don't think, and it just remains to be seen, I don't think that it gets dismissed as a wetland. I think it comes into play. And the way a superseding order, a superseding request works is all parties are notified of a date to get together at the property, the homeowner, the commissioners. If it's more than a quorum of commissioners, you have to advertise it as a public meeting at that site, which is fine. We could do that. And the DEP reviewer takes in the comments from both sides and then goes back, applies the standards of the State Wetlands Protection Act to the decision and renders a decision to either uphold the commission's denial or issue what's called a superseding order of conditions if they decide that the project is approvable with their own conditions. And then we would issue a mirroring order of conditions if that was the case. So that's the way the procedure goes.
So in other towns where this has happened, the person gets to do what they want frequently.
The homeowner.
Yep.
However-
So our 5 hours of deliberating on it,
And that was I would not be unhappy to say, that was a difficult decision that I think everyone took very seriously.
yeah, we spent a lot of time. And
A lot of
I'm-
time on it to be fair to the owner.
Yes, and I'm confused and I'm frustrated, Drew. I don't understand when we were emailing about it and it was like, don't respond to this. I have to get this out by Friday, take a look at it. Like, you knew it had to be out by Friday, so I don't know like what happened in the office where it didn't get out. Like, I don't understand where this is coming from because we knew, and in the emails it was said, like, I have to get this out by Friday because Friday was the drop dead, like it had to be out Thursday. So, like, it was discussed, it was known, and then I just don't understand, like, is there not enough staff? Like, are we understaffed? Like, what happened where this didn't get out?
It was just an oversight. I really don't know what else to say about it. If you're just saying it was needed to be out by Friday, I think that was under the 21 days from April 6th.
Yes.
I'll have to go back and look at the correspondence. I'm not going to comment on it without going back and looking at the actual correspondence. So I'm not going to take your word for it that it was 21 days from March 23rd as opposed to April 6th. I'm going to go back and look at that. But that, I believe that was from April 6th, not March 23rd, that correspondence, getting it out. Right?
In
And
any
if that was, if that was my impression, then we did get it out within the 21 days. But as it turns out, that's not correct.
In any
The
event,
closing of the hearing.
I had a discussion with both town manager and town council in terms of looking down the road. And if the DEP comes out and we go through the whole process and they issue a superseding order of conditions, there is case law. Eastham Conservation, you don't have to look far, just go down to Eastham. They failed to act on a particular job, and the DEP came out, the DEP issued the order, superseding order, and they appealed it, and they prevailed. in
The
Superior
town,
Court.
the town Conservation Commission
We have
appealed it and
a
won.
chance to appeal.
Not that, you know, we always hope for the best case scenario, but I'm already prepared, and I've been talking
appeal.
with both town manager and town council.
Who do we go before,
about-
DEP?
It's DEP that.
DEP makes the determination for the appeal
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But they haven't even assigned a reviewer yet, as far as I know.
No, we just got copied on the letter that was sent to DEP requesting a superseding procedure. So we should be receiving correspondence soon as to a date and time for a meeting at the property.
It's a rather arcane definition, is it not, of letting the owner know within 21 days? Because I believe it was on our website, wasn't it?
What's that?
The determination, the denial.
The owner was here.
He was here at the meeting. When he wasn't allowed to speak because we weren't taking any more public comment.
But when
He
you,
was here.
when you read regulations, and you said this earlier,
Yeah.
when you look at 1004, under definitions, the date of issuance is the postmark on the notification.
Is that what it says?
Yep, that's what it says, right in the regulations. So, you know, I pored over this once I got
No
the
way
letter
around
from
it then, if
this
it said-
guy's attorney, and I thought, why aren't they defining issuance? But it's called date of issuance, and that's in
Date
1004.
of issuance.
Yep, postmark on the envelope.
Yes.
How
In any event, you know, we don't know what's going to happen at
Frustrating.
this point, but I've kind of played this scenario out. As I said, I met with town manager and town council, and I told them what I wanted. If this doesn't go our way, I want an appeal. And I think they'd be
Yeah.
prepared to honor that.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Because in good faith, we did everything by the book.
Oh,
Everything.
yeah.
So, one last thing before everybody goes. At first it was a story, but now it's confirmed. We do have a live osprey nest in the cell tower.
We have a lot of osprey nests.
I stood there
Don't
today.
you do anything to my osprey?
I stood there today for over an hour, right at the base of the tower, and I watched that male bringing heron in one at a time and just feeding her. So she's sitting on eggs. I haven't climbed the tower, but, and the Fish and Wildlife Service has very strict guidelines about cell tower maintenance. You cannot maintain that tower from April 1st to August 30th. So if anything has to be done to that tower, and I really believe that our staff should issue a letter, they have to go by the book. They have to notify Fish and Wildlife, and Fish and Wildlife deals with that, not them. You cannot have engineers climbing up that tower if she's sitting on eggs
Yeah.
or feeding chicks.
Yeah. Which tower is it?
The brand
The
new
one
on
off of Red Brook Road?
No one?
The most expensive osprey platform I've ever seen. And when you go in there and you look up the shaft, the entire triangle is nothing but a steel mesh walking platform for the engineers that have to be there, and they're just filling it in. It's all
Because
sticks.
they're so smart.
Of course they are.
It's like the
But
best
anyways,
house in town.
I believe we should issue a letter.
So when my constituents complain about not having cell
I
service,
took
I'll tell them,
pictures, I've got the.
No, don't tell him that. They'll hate them even more.
Hanging right out of his claws.
no, they all love osprey. Until they can't.
And on
get
it goes.
a phone call.
Good job, everybody. Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion to adjourn our hearing at 8:53. Made and seconded. Any discussion, complaints? Nothing? Roll call. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Judy? Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy? I vote yes
Well, I
as
have to
well.
sign anything?
Meeting
Oh,
adjourned.
yeah.